Oh, hello. I don't know if this is working. Is it working? Can you see us? Are we good?
I can't see anything, so I have no way to check.
Good. That's good. We just fly. It's called flying blind, okay? So they do in the Air Force. I don't know what that means.
I also don't know what that means. Wasn't your mom in the Air Force?
Yep, she didn't fly planes. She did electronics.
Oh, but she wouldn't know what that saying means.
I don't know. I don't even know if that's what that means. I don't know why I said that. I don't know what flying blind means. That sounds like something I just made up, like on the spot.
It's okay.
Flying blind. I think it just means you're using your instruments and you have no visibility or something.
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to land with your instrument cluster only without having to actually see anything, but some people can't because they suck and then they crash and die.
Have you ever looked into like the history of where idioms come from? Like different idioms? It's like my weird autistic thing that I'm really into.
No.
So like knock on wood. Do you know where it comes from?
Where does knock on wood come from?
It's this idea from like the 15th medieval century or something where they thought that there was wood nymphs, so they would knock on wood either to scare them away or to like make them not listen to their secrets so that they like wouldn't fuck with their future based on like what they said around the forest. Can I see my laptop? All my secrets.
They can't really from there, but how do you think camera people focus without if it's just them?
Are you asking me a question? What does that
Yeah.
question even mean?
Like if it's just me, am I focused now? I can't tell because I should have just made you sit over here.
Why
and
didn't you
focus
just put this up here so that we could see like right from
it. Too
here?
lazy?
Why don't you put it up now?
Because we can't.
Oh.
Because we won't look at each other. We'll just look at the monitor all day. Because you're
What
a
if I-
narcissist. You're
What if I
obsessed with yourself.
promise not to?
I
What
don't
if I
trust you.
double dare?
I'll do it, but if you look at it twice, I'm going to take it down. But then
Okay.
what's the point of having it up there if we never look at it?
Well, we'll look at it until that's set, and then you can
It
take
is
it
set.
down.
It's good.
Are you sure?
Yep. They all say it's perfectly in focus now.
Both cameras?
Yours was because you're sitting there. I can focus you.
Yours wasn't.
Because
Why didn't you just let me go and focus you?
Because it's
Doesn't
not the
that
same
make-
type of focus. It's different. I have harsher, more rugged features, and yours are softer. So the way
I'm
the
sure
camera
I
focuses is different.
have harsher, more rugged features
Absolutely
than you.
not.
I definitely
You're very
do.
soft.
No.
I'm kind of like Mount Rushmore, and you're kind of like Kirby.
No. I had an incel send me my face score results. I got high grades. Did you get high grades?
Yes.
Yeah. Your orbital bone, good. Your
My what
buccal.
bone? My what bone? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You got low speaking scores.
Damn. I don't need to be good at speaking. That's kind of one of the keys of this. Try your wine.
It's gonna taste disgusting.
No,
like
it's
all mine
actually
does.
it's good. It was a recommendation from a mutual friend. Okay,
It smells like every red wine I've ever had ever.
just try it.
Okay. But that's the first one ever. They all taste the same.
In case anyone's wondering, it's just straight juice, basically.
Oh, that's not alcoholic?
No, it is.
I don't think there's any alcohol in there.
It's low. I picked
Okay.
something that you would like. I'm nice.
Okay.
I'm nice.
Like
Like
Sunny
that.
Delight
Yeah,
with red food coloring.
yeah. If I could get chicken nuggets, but in alcohol form, that's what I would have gotten you.
Okay. You could also just get chicken nuggets in chicken nugget form.
But there would be no alcohol in it.
What is chicken nuggets in alcohol form?
Whipped chicken nuggets with alcohol in it, but it tastes good.
Did you ever drink the for proms? Because all of my school classmates were prepped kids and rich as fuck. They'd always have them at their own houses because they have fucking mansions, and they would always serve like sparkling water, and people would pretend they're like drinking. Or I guess, did you ever do this sparkling water for keep kids doing high school dances?
Well, yeah, but we did it like way, because I was like fundy Christian growing up. So we did it way past being 18.
Oh, okay.
Like we always had, when I grew up, all the adults too, they would just have sparkling wine.
What, were they not allowed
sparkling
to
juice,
drink
sorry.
alcohol?
Well, I was part of a fundy version of Christianity that thought alcohol was bad. And they
Really? It
believed-
doesn't sound very fun.
Good one. That's so funny. That's so funny.
Sorry, go ahead.
You're good. There's nothing.
They didn't drink alcohol.
They didn't
much.
drink alcohol. That's
Okay.
the story. That's the
Gotcha.
whole story. The adults, the children, none of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Little FASD in that community. Very little. That's probably actually not true. They're probably like the sneaky alcohol drinkers.
Not very sneaky when your kid comes out looking like
This.
somebody who would score lowly on the facial score, though. You
Like
said you
that.
just got highly. No,
Like that.
not me.
Okay. I prepped a bunch of events from the year that we can review.
Yeah?
I was trying to think of a fun game to make out of it, but A lot of these are kind of depressing. 2024 was not a good year.
Really? I thought it was a great year.
Yeah, it's not even like when I was like, okay, science will have some uplifting. No, it's just not good. There's just a lot of sad posting. A lot of it.
There's been nothing good scientifically in the past year.
It's
What
just
are we
like,
spending all of our healthcare claims on then, if not for research and development for awesome new things?
it's paying CEOs, obviously.
Oh, shit.
Yeah,
Well, we have one less of those to pay now.
true. Hopefully more in the future. Just kidding. The problem is that it's all like the biggest stories of the year, and all the biggest stories of the year for everything is just kind of sad
Oh, okay.
and negative for the
That
most
sounds
part.
like you chose for sad things, but that's good.
You
That's
know
cool.
what?
I'm
That's
here
not
for it.
true. That's not true. All right. What was your favorite event of the year, personally? Anything you did that was good, fun, good time?
It's been a long year. I guess I was happy about the prep for the Finkelstein debate. Maybe if the debate itself was kind of a shit show, but
Benny Morris, your new best friend.
my new best friend, yeah, that was fun.
I wish we could bring him down here. It's like the 9K to bring him here though.
I think he just doesn't like to travel that much, which is fair.
Well, he said he needs like a cabin that lays down for him.
Yeah, I
on
think he
the-
just doesn't like to travel much. That's the same. That's what I would, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. If you ever went back to Israel, would you go visit him?
Yeah, of course.
I feel like
There's
that's-
20 people that live in that country. I'd probably visit most of the people that I consider myself friendly with, yeah.
I feel like if you're gonna make a New Year's resolution, your New Year's resolution should be spending time with like the new friends that you're making, like the Kraz twins.
Oh, maybe.
You don't like this?
I thought you were going to name literally anybody else, but those guys seem big. Well, those guys are cool. I think they're
you
like,
were preemptively disappointed because every other option I could have listed.
because there are like literally no center left liberal people. And now I'm trying to figure out next year, like, how can I be friendly with people that we don't agree with 100% on, which I think I can do well. But the problem is the disagreements that I have with people are like, I would consider them like,
non-negotiables.
yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of it comes down to foreign policy, a lot of actually just in domestic policy and everything, basically.
Okay.
We were just united right now by our shared hatred of Trump, which is good. Which is more than I can say for some people, like Cenk and Anna. But
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, do you think we can rebuild the Cenk arc? What's going on?
I don't know. I think that the political paradigm broke down a few years ago when it became establishment versus anti-establishment.
Yeah.
There was a political commentator very prescient on this. His name was Stephen Bonnell in New York City in a Minds event where I made fun of the fact that you guys think that you're a politically diverse group of people. And I don't know if I asked them to raise their hands or if they did. It was like, who here is like left and right? And like everybody raised their hand. And I'm like, cool. How many people here support like the establishment? And it was like nobody versus anti-establishment. It was like everybody. It's like, okay, there's not a lot of political diversity here. There's just everybody here is anti-establishment. And I think Cenk is a little bit in that direction. He's just very anti-establishment. And then so that's just, for some reason, conservatives get to live, like they get to have all the pros of one world and all of the, like none of the cons of that world. It'd be like saying I have a body count of like 500 women and I've raped every single one, but I'm not a rapist. Like that's like conservative approach to politics, is that somehow Donald Trump, who is a billionaire, real estate mogul from New York, born with a silver spoon in his mouth, who's supported by the richest man this guy is anti-establishment, who also was the president for 4 years, is somehow not the establishment, is supported by the entire Republican Party, is not the establishment. So I don't know how what?
Gonna join the Stromp isn't like owned by billionaires.
Yeah, I don't
siding
understand
with
how
Elon Musk.
Republicans can be anti-establishment and support Trump, but that's they are right now. So that's the arc that like Cenk is on. And then I think Anna, there's a lot of people whose whole lives are. It used to be you think that like people's lives are defined by their trauma with their parents. Well, for political commentators, it's like that, except it's trauma with whoever made fun of you on Twitter last. And for Anna, man, those lefties really got to her. That homeless guy and the trans calling her a birthing person. Whew.
I feel like the lefty hatred, though, maybe this isn't your experience because I feel like you get uniquely horrible conservative hatred. But I feel like lefty hatred is like a unique level of like unpleasant to experience. Like it's like they don't just try to like punch you in the face. They try to like stab you and poison you to death and like kill all of your friends and family slowly and like monotonously, which I think can be like in some ways more distressing, especially when you assumed we were in the same camp than like the opposite camp trying to destroy you.
I think there's two things at play there. I think one thing at play is that if you are part of a political side, then it feels worse when they attack you. like if a conservative wants to call me like a gay wad or whatever insult you want to use,
good one.
like, yeah, like, okay, I don't care. But like when a lefty is like, you're bigoted or you're racist, it's like, well, I don't view myself that way. Like the closer you are to them, the more the insults hurt, because they're genuinely saying that you're not a thing that you view yourself as, rather than a conservative who's attacking you on a point that like, yeah, I'm not that, fuck you, we fight on that. I think that it hurts more. And then a second thing is, I think that there's a slightly bigger buy-in, I think, for the left, like the things that you have to be in alignment on. I don't even know if that's true, though.
I think that's definitely true. One of the criticisms I feel like I have of, maybe not you, I don't, because I haven't asked you personally about it, but I feel like when I listen to a lot of Democrats and left-leaning people talking about Republicans since the election, especially, but this year, it feels like we all forgot about 2016. Like, it feels like we all forgot, like, the absolute crazy shit that the left was doing from, like, 2016 to 2020, which... Obviously, I would hope that you don't, because you were like in many ways a victim of all that stuff as well. But I feel like when we look at Trump, it's hard not to look at that and think that he's a monster that we made a little bit.
Yeah, we did, but that's fine if you want to think that, and I think there's some legitimacy to that. But people just need to be aware that like all of politics is reactionary to everything else, right?
Yeah.
Like people were like that because for a long time. I remember when the Weinstein stuff started to come out, and I remember I was in Omaha. I was outside of a dental office going into an appointment. And I was listening to 1110 KFAB radio host who with Chet David. I don't remember the guy's name, but she was, or no, it might have even been Tom Becca back then. She was talking about how she heard the Weinstein stuff, and she's like, those girls knew what they were doing. They knew that they were trying to get jobs. It's like, damn, that's wild. So it's not surprising to me that there might be like an overreaction to women who are like, this guy that had a bad date with me, he raped me, which is a ridiculous point. But like 10 years earlier, it's like raped his wife. That's not even possible. That's like keying your own car. Who would ever do that? Like it's just stupid. So I understand like, yeah, you know, is Trump largely or somewhat of a response to some things? Sure. But I mean, like the left is a response to things that the crazy right were doing. It's not like we got gay marriage because every state said, okay, that came from the Supreme Court. Same thing with abortion. Like, yeah.
I guess one thing that I think about a lot, do you think that the left tends to be broadly like more educated and if not morally right, at least like morally lucky, or do you disagree with that framework?
It's probably a lot of moral luck, but right now they just tend to, for whatever reason, the political alignment ended up to where they probably believe more in things that are truthful than conservatives who are in complete and total fantasy land right now. But.
Yeah. And so this is something me and Josiah have like thought about before, which is that like, do you have different standards for like the educated versus the uneducated, or like the morally lucky versus the unmorally lucky? And I think like, I'm of two. I actually don't know where I fall. I waffle back and forth on this answer all the time. Because I think that there's sound arguments on either side, which would argue like, well, if this group is broadly more educated and whatnot, then there is a certain level of responsibility to conduct themselves. But then on the flip side, it's like, if you hold them to a higher standard forever, then you get this situation where you've got like actual cry bullies on the right about a whole bunch of shit, but they're like laughing at the Nancy Pelosi stuff and like all, you know, like the standards become way too far because of this like, I don't know, slippery slope. I don't know how to mitigate between these two things, I suppose.
I don't know. It's kind of a weird question about like determinism, where it's like you can understand why somebody acts the way that they do, but you can only make excuses so long for it. I think interpersonally, this is very easy to work out. If you have a child or like a spouse, usually there's some type of vow involved, and you know, even if they're going through tough times or they're being kind of crazy, you're supposed to support them. If it's a partner, like, I don't know, for the type of counseling you did or for advice you give to people, if there's somebody like, I've been dating a guy for 3 months, I just found out he's got like, you know, major depressive disorder and he's been cutting himself and he's threatening to kill himself. Generally, the advice is like, this is way above your pay grade. You don't have an obligation. The person might be like 19 years old. Like, this is not on you to figure this out. Even if you left and this person killed themselves, this is not like your fault unless you like told them to do it or something. The issue is like, we have like half the country right now is suicidal, and I can understand why people have gotten to that place, but it's really hard to do that analysis and to take, because all of the analysis basically involves you taking all of the agency from these people.
Yes. No, it is. It's treating them like
weird.
They're dumb people. Yeah, completely. They're like wounded animals, essentially, which like...
But they get that. They're allowed to do that. But the frustrating thing is that they treat themselves that way, because they'll tell you that like, I can't trust anything from the Health and Human Services Department in the United States because Fauci lied one time. And it's like, that's your standard? Like, have your parents ever lied to you ever? Like, you would never apply that standard to the other side, but they willingly do the double standard, but they have reasons for doing the double standard. So it's just hard to.
Yeah. But then it's tricky on the flip side, because then you'll talk with like, especially like diehard Dems, where they'll be like, well, Fauci never lied. And then you're like, well, there was a number of, the problem is that this is the way science goes, is that he'll say something and it'll end up being incorrect because it's a brand new like field of study. Like that's standard. But instead of like explaining that, they'll just be like, no, that never happened, which I feel like increasingly, like the fact that there's increasing seeding distrust in institutions at like such a large scale suggests that there's something that's going wrong, and the culpability can't just be on like the dumb people not getting it. The culpability is also on them, but I'm dissatisfied with the answer that it's mostly them. It's like there's something institutionally going wrong here.
I understand what you're saying there, but I would say that the difference here is like 99-1. I think that over and over again, Democrats, it's demanded that they concede positions or change their view on things, and they do. And we can go through any number of topics, and they have. So
Policy.
I mean, even statements like most Democrats had to admit, Biden and Kamala had to say when they were running for office, like the rioting is bad. It has to stop. Like we don't support this. This isn't good. The whole world has kind of changed course a bit on a lot of the trans stuff. The organizations, scientific organizations and academia, Olympic and sports institutions, like people have changed on this. Like they did it. They had their processes, both internal and external. I'm sure scientifically they're reviewing things, externally they're getting pressure, but they've changed it. But what have Republicans done that on? Please save me. Tell me one fucking thing that Republicans have changed their mind on that was wrong in the past 25 years.
Iraq, the invasion.
Yeah, but I don't think I would.
I don't know if I don't think I would give them credit.
Level. Yeah, I don't think that, because that was like everybody changed their mind on that, and Republicans push it first. I don't know if you get credit for that 10 years after. You get credit for acting in the moment and for being preventative. You don't get credit for calling something out afterwards and then disavowing all of that, but still essentially going down the same road.
Gotcha. So you'd say Iraq is different because it was like 10 years later when everyone looked at it and they're like, okay, this was obvious.
Yeah, Iraq wasn't like the Democrats saying to the Republicans, you guys messed up. Iraq was like the whole U.S. was like, oof, we fucked up, like everybody did. I think Hillary was giving speeches about the need for, because she was a senator from New York back then, wasn't she, I think? And she was talking about the need for, I think, the emergency use of force, or the authorization for use of military force, I think. Don't quote me on that. But like, I think that like we were relatively together on that, relatively speaking, and we all kind of realized it was a mistake, but that wasn't like Republicans admitting that they were wrong. They also do this thing too, where when Republicans are going to admit a wrong, have you heard of the no true Scotsman fallacy? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they eject that person from the party, so it was never them that were wrong.
Not a good Republican. Yeah,
every single person that I support is correct. I was like, what about that guy who was wrong? Oh, well, I never actually supported him. Boom. And then they do that for everything. That's why when I've asked multiple times on peers in my Jubilee thing, and I was like, what's one thing you disagree with Trump on, or one thing you think he did wrong? They will proudly say nothing. They'll admit to nothing. But I think if I were to ask like Democrats, like, what are things that you think Kamala or Biden or Obama? I mean, fuck, a lot of them just don't even like Obama because they didn't go far. Like, it's not the same.
Is it new under Trump? Because I haven't really been super invested in American politics until like the last 4 years, I would say. So I'm not as familiar with like Bush or like any of the other previous Republican. Was it similar? Like with Bush, were they as unwilling to kind of bite any bullet about Bush or anything like that? Particularly while he was still active as a politician.
I think it was similar. I think that there's always been that political partisanship. I think it's been pretty hardcore. As a Rush Limbaugh, Michael Savage, Glenn Beck listener, proudly, they were always pretty unhinged about Obama and Bush. But I think the difference is that like to be like really politically active back then, Obama drew in a lot of new people. But like other than that, like politics is just like for politics nerds. But like now politics is for everybody. Every single person, if you've ever bought a Bitcoin before, you have strong feelings about politics. If you go to the gym, you have strong feelings about politics. If you're on the internet playing video games or watching movies or doing anything, you're like part of a political camp now. It's like international.
But that's in part because the politicians are trying to do that. Like that's not like, I guess I don't see that as necessarily like an inherently bad thing. It just feels like the like avant-garde thing. Like it's just like the trend right now. I wouldn't be surprised if in the 60s people probably felt similar, that like everything was political. Everyone was always talking about politics because in the 60s politics was a really, really big deal. But then people got kind of sick of it and it died out for a bit. Maybe this is just like a cyclical resurgence of that same thing.
I think
obviously different.
Well, I think that the thing about politics back then, though, was like the Vietnam War was a huge thing. And there were like new things about, because I think the Vietnam War was called like the TV war, although even that wasn't compared to what we saw for Iraq. But like there was a lot of stuff that was on TV that people were seeing for the first time that was sensational. But now the issue is like politicians might be doing it a bit, but it's more social media has just connected us so much in ways that we were never connected before. And now there's like these worldwide groups that don't make sense. Like it doesn't make sense that you would be politically aligned with all these different groups, and it's causing a lot of dumb opinions to pop up. Like there are increasing like more friends I have in Europe that I talk to. There was this person like 2 weeks ago who was telling me that her mom is like a full on like is always going through like, have you seen this like trans stuff? And she's like showing her like social media from Switzerland, and she's showing her like American social media and shit. And I'm hearing this from more Europeans that like their parents are being radicalized by like American social media shit. And now you see Elon is giving strong opinions about like fucking who was the leader he was supporting? It was the AfD in Germany for a while. It was people in like South America, but like yeah, like why is Elon even having an opinion on this? It's just weird.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely the first time that my dad specifically has had like strong opinions about Trump specifically. Like Canadians are always kind of tuned into American politics because it impacts us so much, but most Canadians don't care about the presidents themselves. Like they wouldn't be partisan towards a specific individual. But increasingly in Canada, I'm seeing like Canadians for Trump, which is just it's a very odd phenomenon that I haven't ever seen before. Like Canadians have never been for any American president. They've been broadly like left or right leaning, but that was about it, which is
but people
odd.
are like seeing these anti-establishment figures in like every movement. So like Brexit and Trump are like the same, and the AfD and Trump are like the same. And in Canada, the what's the name of that? Is it the PC? What the fuck was the name of
PCC?
it? Yeah, it's like that's like
Bernier?
Trump, and like it's just everybody's like getting all thrown into like the same camp of like international political sides, and it's just super cringe.
Do you believe in the wisdom of crowds at all? Are you familiar with the concept?
Yeah, but I don't know. The wisdom of crowds just means that if you ask a crowd about like a certain thing, their idea tends to converge on what the right answer is.
So long as they can be independent. Like if you average the opinion of the crowd, you tend to come to a closer answer than an expert or something like
but
that.
these are like for very these are like for simplistic prediction markets. These aren't for like very complex and multifaceted, multivariate predictions about the future, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess when I think about like the increasing anti-institutional like feelings, I guess there's something in there where I go, is there something like true in there that maybe is being overlooked? But this is probably also part of my bad. I feel like I'm increasingly becoming, I wouldn't say increasingly becoming anti-institutional, but I feel like after working with Democrats this year and then the election specifically, the outcome, I didn't expect it to be as much of a win for Trump as it was. I was expecting it to be close. I didn't know who was going to win, but I wasn't expecting it to be such a significant win for Trump specifically, which made me go like, oh shit, like I'm disconnected because this isn't even this isn't even on the landscape of what I predicted, which means that like the systems I'm using to gauge where people are at policy and publicly are off because my prediction was so incorrect.
Sure, but it's hard to know like at the end of the day, like what do you like people don't even know at the end of the day like what are we even predicting, because like people will falsely assume that we're predicting what the public sentiment is. That's not true. They'll falsely assume what like a voter thinks. That's not true. They'll falsely like what you're really trying to assume is what are people that are willing to go and vote on prediction day or on voting day are going to go and vote for. Like it's a much more like granular answer than people even realize. Like it might be that the majority of the country would support Kamala Harris. It might be that the majority of voters even would support Kamala Harris. It might be that the people that voted that day or that had the desire to vote, I don't know if there's like ways to measure that. Like it's difficult to figure it out. But I mean like again, like conservatives, like to push that it was like a blowout, but like it wasn't. It was like 2.5 million votes for a popular vote win. It wasn't the 15 million that they initially tried to say. And it was about 200,000 votes between all 7 swing states that could have made them go in another direction, it's a nice public vote win or a popular vote win, which Republicans aren't usually enjoying.
Yeah.
That is true. But I mean, like there are also like global factors at play too. A lot of inflation sentiment that irritated a lot of people.
Sure.
And all the same like feelings that you had right now are the same feelings that Republicans had in 2020 when Trump lost. And they're like, there's no way, this is impossible. That's why they, to this day, say that it was voter fraud, and they still won't acknowledge that loss. So
yeah, I don't want to be that. I don't want to like engage in that brain worming, right?
Sure.
I want
if you came into that election thinking that like there's a 99% chance that Kamala wins, then something needs to adjust or whatever. Yeah. But
yeah, which it wasn't. But I would have put Trump winning popular vote less than probably 5%. I think honestly, looking back, I would have put it less than 5% pretty confidently, which makes me go, something was wrong in my thinking. There was just a thinking error there because I should have at least scaled up statistically the probability of that outcome. obviously.
Yeah, maybe. There's just a lot of factors in here that we don't even think about. Like nobody thinks to look at the polling in Florida or Texas in terms of like likely outcome of popular vote because it doesn't matter in the United States. Electoral vote is the only thing that matters.
Yeah, it just makes me go, if there's this anti-institutional wave that is like growing and growing and growing, is there something in there even though everything that they're saying that it is stupid and wrong, right? Because I think so much about like the banality of evil. Like in many ways, the anti-institutional movement I think is like one of the bigger threats that we have to like a democratic system, which I think would be bad. I don't think we have a better system right now for basically improving human flourishing and well-being. I don't want to see democracy go. And so what's going on that institutions are increasingly like disconnected from people in a way that makes them highly averse to those institutions. And some of it's like propaganda, right? There's a number of factors going into it. But the only thing I guess that I care about is like what the institutions themselves can do. Like what can we, proverbially we, like not actually we, because I'm not part of it anymore, but what can the institutions do? Because so often the thing that will be the cure to these major problems is super banal, right? It's super simple, right? One of the best things that like thrust forward like women's rights was like the invention of like the tampon, because it allowed them to be out and working and consistently available all the time because they could manage their menstrual flow. Or the birth control pill was another massively freeing thing for women's emancipation, even though it seems very banal in a lot of ways. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think the issue, though, I've said this for a couple of years now, is that like all the simple problems have been fixed and everything that's remaining is pretty complicated. So there's probably not an easy, simple fix for stuff like that. Or maybe, I guess, I don't know, Ozempic is kind of an easy fix for fatness. Maybe we'll see. But it's pretty hard.
True. We never thought we could fix it before, but...
Well, no, there were people that... Scott Alexander actually wrote an article a few years ago saying that we'd probably fix it through pharmaceuticals, which is funny because it seems like that maybe is happening, although we still don't know if that'll happen for sure. One of the biggest things that I say is that like people are disconnected from experiencing the consequences of their decisions. And when you have that disconnect, training is impossible. This is true for children, it's true for animals, it's true for people. So if you vote for a thing and they do a bad thing, it's hard for you to even know if it's a bad thing because there are so many layers removed between that particular thing and the results that you experience. So it could be that we need to find a way to tie those together closer, but that's like such a sociopathic, unhinged thing to even suggest. Like if your state votes against FEMA or whatever, then fine, you just shouldn't get any FEMA. And that means that if you have a natural disaster, then you just sit and figure it out and you get no federal help at all. And that's really hard for people to, nobody would be in favor of that. But yeah, as long as those consequences remain super disconnected, it's very easy to be the guy on your team that ints every single game but blames your jungler because who knows, like there's not like a one-to-one connection between your actions and why a game was lost. Fault. Yeah, and that's basically where we're at right now, yeah.
Do you think that there is, because like what you're suggesting there, like a tying of consequences together closer is kind of more brutalistic, right? Because the big consequences for things that a lot of these like institutions safeguard against us is pretty massive. It's usually like human suffering and death. Do you think that there's a need for, like, do you think that there is something lost in a liberal democracy when there isn't a certain level of like brutalism that's counterintuitive? For example, people not realizing the consequences of their actions because harsh realities never face them because there's always a net.
I mean, maybe. I mean, it could just be that there's just like, we're just in an unlucky moment in time where the things that are like, life is pretty good in America, which means we don't have any crazy things to focus on. So everybody's like looking for a thing to focus on. And then there are some unique issues. Like there's a lot of foreign interference right now in the United States. And it's very hard for people to see or want to acknowledge that. The technologies that exist now are ones that we're having a hard time dealing with. Social media is like, finally, the ship is being righted on that in some areas. I think Australia just banned social media access for people under the age of 16.
Are you for that?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So we're kind of getting there, but like the problem is that very rarely it's kind of like dealing with an abusive person and you're like, why were you with this guy? Well, because abusive people usually have at least some really good traits. It's very rare that it's all bad. And so for any of these issues that need to be fixed, for an issue that I'm saying it needs to be fixed, the other side views it as like integral to their function and flourish in a democracy. It's important that Elon bought this and that conservatives are finally given a voice where the liberals can't silence them, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Okay. Looking at the events from this year, I feel like the Biden stepping down is the biggest one. I'm curious what you think about Biden stepping down, dropping out of the race. Do you think that that was the right call, the wrong call?
Honestly, I think my position is unchanged. I think it was a very, very, very difficult call. I think that that's like an edge choice. You could stay, you could leave. Anything could happen one way or another. It's hard to say. Maybe it would have been the case that Biden maybe could have beaten Trump. Maybe. maybe there was no chance. Maybe he would have lost even worse because it would have been an even greater referendum on inflation. I mean, who knows? It's hard to say.
Fair enough. All right. How do you feel about Trump being allowed to run for re-election? Were you surprised by this at all?
Surprised? No. I think it's pretty disgusting that we can throw away parts of our Constitution, that the Supreme Court is so eager to sign on to that because of their need to support Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I do not find the arguments from the Supreme Court very compelling at all for why that part of the Constitution needed to be thrown out to support Donald Trump.
What were the arguments? Do you remember?
Yeah. So after the Civil War, we basically, when the country was coming back together, they decided to pass an amendment. And as part of that amendment, they said that it was the 14th Amendment. Section 3 of that amendment said that if you were a prior oath taker, meaning somebody who held office, and you had engaged in or aided the enemy, engaged in insurrection or aided the enemies thereof of the United States, that you would no longer be allowed to hold office again that required taking an oath, basically. So some people argued that it was overly broad. Those people are retarded. It very narrowly targeted people that held office, and then it broadly targeted
very specific people who have to take an oath.
Yeah, it's just office holders. And then it broadly targeted people that had engaged in insurrection and all that, and then it narrowly targeted them in terms of holding office again. That was it.
Question.
Yep.
In Canada, when I worked at the legislature as a landscaper, I had to take an oath. It wouldn't apply. Does America have similar things?
What do you mean by oath?
I had to take some Canadian constitutional oath to like respect there was like an official lady that came in that was like certified to give the oaths. It was like
For landscaping?
I
can't speak to Canada. I don't know anything about Canada.
That's fair. Does America have anything
Nothing
like
that
that?
I've ever heard of like that.
Okay, so it wouldn't bar those people from.
No, I've never heard that before.
Okay,
no.
gotcha.
Basically, just people that have held office, and maybe it was only just federal government, or maybe it was federal and state government, but like basically government people. I think maybe police officers. I think have to take an oath to the Constitution or something like that.
Would it bar police officers then if they had been part of an insurrection to be a police officer
Again, possibly. I don't remember if they take an oath as well or if it applied to them. But regardless of that, after the Section 5 of that amendment had allowed for Congress to heal that injury via a congressional statute. And during Reconstruction, which was the period in the years afterwards where America was trying to rebuild itself after the Civil War, Congress, I think on 2 separate occasions, passed a law basically giving blanket forgiveness to everybody so that we could all kind of come together and chill and not like hate each other. Mm-hmm. When Colorado had said, well, actually, we think that the 14th Amendment is still active because it's part of our Constitution. And they said that we think that by the 14th Amendment, Section 3, Donald Trump probably shouldn't be allowed to hold office. So we're going to strike him from the nominations, not the election ballot, but the primary ballots. That was challenged by Trump and it went to the Supreme Court. And then the Supreme Court said that, well, this would be really confusing to enforce, so we don't like it. And Congress didn't say that we're going to enforce it, so we don't like it. And it was just bullshit arguments. There is no fair reading of that amendment that would have given you either of these. It was just stupid. And I've never heard somebody provide a good argument for it. I've never had anybody challenge me on it that provided a good argument. It's bullshit. It's just absolute bullshit. But the more frustrating part is that conservatives, especially conservative Supreme Court justices, will be critical of liberals for reading the Constitution too openly. Mm-hmm. So they'll be like, oh, how do you have the right to privacy because of this? Like, that's not written in there. And liberals will say, oh, well, we think that it, like, you know, you have a penumbra of rights. There are different things that imply this. And conservatives will say, well, we need to strictly read the Constitution, only the text. Yes. But for this, they went way out of bounds and they decided that if it was difficult to enforce the thing, then the thing ought to just not be enforced, which is absolutely nowhere in the Constitution. This would never be an original reading of the Constitution, and it was total fucking bullshit. But there we are. It's not surprising at all, though. I think even Pisco said that the Supreme Court will probably take Trump's side on this, but it is what it is.
Did he say that because the Supreme Court is stacked at the time, or did he say that because he thought that that would be the way that they would read the original
Because the Supreme Court is stacked by conservatives that have no principles or allegiance to the U.S. Constitution.
Obviously, others would disagree.
No, they would just lie and make bullshit and roll around in the mud.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy to me to think about him running for re-election, specifically after January 6th. But I guess I just don't know enough about your guys' Constitution to weigh in super
Well,
strongly.
for January 6th, none of that was real. That was all done by Antifa. They just basically memory hold the entire thing. That's it. There's like that never happened in a bad way.
Do you feel like the Supreme Court has been, by and large, loyal to the Constitution up until this point? Because I know I hear a lot of Republicans make the argument that like the 60s, 70s, like Supreme Court was very liberal stacked and did a whole bunch of rulings. Even I think like Casey and stuff came under kind of that era, which were very like what Republicans would argue bad rulings, political rulings.
Probably. They're probably too liberal. I think that I'm not
Like,
a
you'd agree that
constitutional
they were probably
lawyer,
too liberal
but like
back then?
Roe and Casey were a little while that looked like legislation. I think I come pretty warm to those arguments, but I haven't read all the cases surrounding those, so I wouldn't be able to give like a super. I'm worried that I'm both sides in this, but like I would, based on like the little I know, I would say the other probably times that the court was too liberal, sure. But liberal in this direction, I think is a little bit insane. But you could argue it was bad, but bad in the way that they were overstepping the boundaries of what they should be doing and doing things that was really the job of the legislature is one thing. But giving like criminal protection to the president of the United States and axing parts of the Constitution to allow him to run again, I think is a whole other thing.
Yeah,
of bad stuff.
The immunity stuff is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Also, what happened in 2024? Multiple assassination attempts, and we got this banger of a photo. Do you think that this led to the downfall?
No, I think it was. I think we move on really quickly from things. I think that we don't talk about these as much because I think all the shooters ended up kind of being like conservative. If they would have been,
Yeah, I think they were like soft right or whatever. They're like never Trumpers, right?
yeah, or I don't know if they were never Trumpers, but just like their backgrounds were a little bit messy. Like I think that first kid had like donated to the Democrats in like $10 or $15, but then he'd like registered as a Republican, so there wasn't a strong like tie-in to the Democrats. So I think that because of that, I think we just didn't care much because Democrats will never like be aggressive on these issues, and Republicans will only fixate on what they can blame on the Democrats. So we just kind of moved on from it. Yeah,
It's kind of interesting seeing, like, I feel like you've got this assassin, you've got Luigi as well, and I feel like increasingly there's kind of like these weird political subgroups where like violence is emerging out of that are unlike any, like when we think about political violence, we think about like extremes on like either end, right? We'd expect like if it's Trump, you'd expect like maybe an Antifa, like a crazy far left person. If it's a liberal, you'd expect somebody crazy far right, typically by and large. And yet like Luigi was a teapotter, like literally just a Musk guy who
wait, was he? Is that 100% confirmed? Do we know that?
It's not 100% confirmed, I don't believe, because I don't think we've heard from him. But my understanding is that he was kind of like pro Elon Musk, self-growth, but he was mostly part of that part of Twitter subculture. That's the main thing I've read.
Maybe.
Heard.
I haven't looked into it as much because I saw some stuff that ended up not being true in the beginning, so I just stopped caring. But I think that the scarier thing about where the shooters are coming from or where the assassinations are coming from probably isn't necessarily where they come from, but like who's supporting them. And I think that's probably not good when you see a lot of support for it. There wasn't a lot of support for the Trump assassinations because liberals are cucked and because Republicans always hate when their own gets attacked. The Luigi stuff has gotten a lot of support just because everybody's anti-establishment right now and
frustrated with healthcare, and frustrated with like cost of living and stuff like that.
Yeah. So then that's like an easy target, I guess.
Yeah. I was about to ask you something about the Luigi stuff. How do you draw the line? Political violence. How do you draw the line with political violence? Because I'm assuming that you would be pro like the American Revolution and whatnot. So like at what point is political violence condemnable? And at what point would you go, this is the correct thing to do?
I think part of having a society is we agree to a system of laws, and we agree that sometimes those laws aren't always going to align with what we want them to be. So maybe around things like abortion or whatever. However, when there are some offenses that are so egregious that they seem to offend like even basic human intuition, and we feel like we're not getting support from legislators, and then we feel like we're not getting support from the lawmakers, then at that point, I guess people feel the need to take things into their own hands. I mean, I would agree that is probably like a righteous path to violence, but you have to be very, very, very careful along the way there because a lot of people can feel that way about a lot of different things. So
do you think, because when I look at like the Luigi case, I feel like the biggest question that I have is I need to know a lot more about healthcare specifically to decide if I think that like that was political violence, that was potentially something that was like probably like morally neutral, justified. But I also think that he should be in jail for all of the charges, like no matter what, because I think even if the healthcare system is fractured, that doesn't mean that we also alongside that want to start fracturing like our judicial system and our prison system and our lawmaking. Like that's not what we want. Do you think that, because I feel like when I hear people talk about the Luigi situation, I feel like nobody's just talking about the meat, which is that like, what is the healthcare insurance situation looking like? What's going on? There's like Wendell Potter. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a big name. He used to be a healthcare insurance broker pretty high up. Now he speaks out really aggressively against it. And it feels like it's hard to sift through the information necessary to understand if essentially what's going on in healthcare and healthcare insurance is so egregious, and politicians are so unmotivated to allow it to change, that there is potentially certain political violence and martyrs of that political violence that will be justified if it creates political change. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the problem is that like it is complicated and we don't even know what the problem is. So how are you going to change it? And the bad thing about this, I mean, I would argue it's bad ethically. You shouldn't be murdering people. It's bad legally. Obviously, it's against the law. Yep. But I think it's bad even like consequentially because like no good change is going to come after this killing. It was just like the Occupy Wall Street movement. It was just like the Black Lives Matter movement. Like people are mad, but they don't really know about what. They can't even accurately identify the problems, which means that they can't accurately push towards a solution, which means you just have a bunch of misdirected anger that results in people doing damage and then going back to whatever and just being mad and frustrated.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like the outcomes of Luigi, like as time has gone on, it's increasingly pushed me towards like, yeah, it seems like it wasn't a good move. But do you when you first saw it, were you immediately just opposed to it, or were you open to exploring what the outcomes would be? Or say, actually, change this. Say the outcomes of Luigi's thing was a massive health insurance overhaul, which wouldn't happen, but say that that's what occurred. Politicians got really motivated behind it, became a major talking point, and it did lead to possibly Medicaid being expanded and just healthcare being more accessible to more people in America. Would you look back at Luigi's behaviors and say that might now consequentially be good and make that a justified form of political violence?
Potentially, yeah. But again, it's a very careful road you have to go down because now people might view this as being the main driver of change for anything. And I don't think the issue right now behind changing our healthcare system is with politicians. I think that as a people, we're genuinely very unsure of what we want. I think the left definitely would, if a public option was possible, the left at the very least would push for a public option. Mm-hmm. But the right is constantly torn between these two worlds of
protect the vets, fuck you guys.
Kind of. Have you heard of third positionism?
Yes, I've heard of it. Is this the idea of like the third parties and how they like never really take off? Or
no. That's okay. That has to do with spoiler candidates. I think third positionists are basically some people use this as a dog whistle or another thing for like Nazi people, but it's basically people who are incredibly economically left. Like they would be socialists, but culturally they're very right. So they would say things like we should expand government protections, but for white people and things like that. And I think that you've got a lot of confusion right now on the right because you're getting a lot of people that might be in favor of fighting the corporations and expanding some government protections, but mainly around like, I'll be generous and say right now, a nationalistic demographic, although things like immigration and the H-1B debate are shaping that conversation to be a lot more insidious. I would say insidious, but racially motivated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they also the problem is they believe in so many contradictory things. So there's like we want smaller government, but then we also want like increased tariffs. We want the freedom of association, but we want to ban people from being able to get abortions. We want like it's hard to like I don't know if they want smaller government or larger government because it seems like they want larger government for things they like. Like we want to keep funding the military and increase the funding on this, but we also want to like defund the Pentagon. I don't know what that means. It's hard to, but there's like no actual policy positions that the right talks about, so the people don't have anything to rally around. So they just end up like screaming a bunch of things that are incoherent.
What do you think is like the most insidious part? Like which groups? I think like in the left, we've got like tankies and maybe like the kind of like, especially the cultural progressives, which I think create a lot of insidious issues. It creates a lot of splitting amongst the party, a lot of splitting of like opinions. I would argue also a lot of really bad and dangerous opinions a lot of the time. Do you think that there's an equivocal on the right? Because I think a lot of people want to immediately like point to Nazis like you would to tankies. I don't know if you think that these are equivocal. And then is there a version of like the progressives that are kind of somewhat politically powerful, but maybe not as big as like the more dominant Republican Party? Do you see any schisming amongst the Republicans like we have on the left? Or more
no, I don't think they're schisming on either side. I think on the left, I think progressives are just a really small part of the party. They're just people in school and people on Twitter. But like electorally, they're basically irrelevant, I think. Or close to irrelevant. On the right, the MAGA people have basically taken over the entire Republican Party, has been eaten from within by that movement. And then now they're maybe about to fracture on more extremist lines, and they're figuring out like how racist do we want to be as a party. And they're slowly discovering that, whether it was saying Kamala wasn't black, or whether it was saying Vivek is not American, or we need to ban all Muslims, or ban certain types of immigrants. Like, I don't know, the right is figuring that out now, but who knows where they'll settle on because they don't really have any values or principles. They could be taken in any direction, so it's hard to say.
Yeah. Interesting.
The problem is that in a lot of ways, like Donald Trump is kind of, he's a parallel to like Hassan, and that like Hassan believes in like socialism and all these things. But if you look at his lifestyle, Hassan is like a uber ultra capitalist, like, and not just like he lives in a capitalist country, but like he's a hyper consumerist. Like he has like name brand fashion. He likes to fly in private jets. He goes to like all the big parties.
Yeah.
He lives in West Hollywood. He has like a cool car. Like he lives his life like a hyper capitalist consumerist in every way.
He likes
when you
the
look
pop
at
star lifestyle.
yeah, and when you look at Donald Trump lives his life like the neocon would. He's like a billionaire, has his own businesses. He like tries to hire whatever the fuck he can. He said he's used H-1Bs in the past. He'll continue to do so. Like Donald Trump is technically like the establishment neocon shill that everybody who follows him supposedly fucking hates and that he's supposed to represent the anti-interests of. So it's like it's really weird to figure out. Like I don't know what any of these people actually think or believe at the end of the day, other than Trump tweets funny things.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like so much of the politics came down to aesthetic, which I would say self-evidently Democrats lost. I think their aesthetic was very, very bad.
Yeah, I guess.
This year.
But it's like imagine like you've seen Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah.
Remember the Sparrow, the High Sparrow? Like imagine people saying they wanted the High Sparrow, but they were supporting like the Lannisters, right? Like it just wouldn't make any sense. Like there's two diametrically opposed things, and I think that yeah, Trump is the same. It's like this is the most establishment guy ever. He's like friends with Epstein and the Clintons and everybody else, and he's done real estate in New York. And
But that's what I mean, right? Is that's like if anyone thinks about it for more than 3 seconds, they can realize that he's archetypally everything that they're describing. He's like big in Time with the Swamp. He's probably more in the swamp with anyone else because he hasn't been a career politician, so he hasn't had a number of kind of like roadblocks to keep him from being more involved in that world.
yeah,
But aesthetically, all the anti-institutionalists felt that he was their guy and thought that he was speaking their language, which was very much like the vibes policies.
yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I found a interesting story. Another thing that happened in 2024 is a mysterious case of a bear body being dumped in the Central Park was solved. Did you hear about this?
Yes.
What do you think of this story?
Um,
It's a decade-long mystery.
when you run on no policy and no fact or whatever, you can basically get away with doing anything. There were a lot of things that that RFK was involved in that people. It just doesn't matter. Like you could literally discover or find out that they'd done anything and nobody would care.
Okay. So for those of you who don't know, should I play the clip or do you want to describe it?
That's like 2.5 minutes. But just basically there was like a, or no, 'cause it's too long. Fuck on. There was like a mystery that I think it was RFK's niece wrote about initially. Ironically enough, she was the author. But like a dead bear got found in New York Central Park. Was it 15 years ago?
10.
10 years ago, and nobody like knew like where it came from. It was
With a
weird.
broken bike beside it, so everyone thought that maybe the bicycle had hit it.
Was there? Wait, did he actually? Was there a broken bike beside it?
Yeah, there was.
That's fucking hilarious. If that's true. I don't even remember that part. But people hated bikers, so obviously I think people wanted to blame bikers on this, and it was stupid. And it basically came out. I don't know who uncovered this. It might have been the New York Times, but when RFK realized that a story was about to be written about it, he decided to go on, or he was on with Roseanne, and he got ahead of it and said, well, here's a really funny story about how I had a bear in my car all day with me, and we dumped it off, and it was just like an absolutely fucking bizarro, weird fucking story of crazy shit.
This is it. This is the clip of him talking about it. Hold on. I can fast forward to this.
And then he had to go to the airport.
I wasn't drinking, of course, but people were drinking with me who thought this was a good idea. I said, let's go put the bear in Central Park and we'll make it look like he got hit by a bike.
In the new video, he says he was shocked to discover
That's just unbelievable.
Unbelievable. But in 2024, that was not the only weird thing that RFK did with animals. He also
Oh, the whale thing.
beheaded a whale and drove it home.
He sawed the head off of a beached whale and drove it home.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a weird guy, but thankfully he's our head of Health and Human Services
I was going
incoming
to
in
say,
the United
unrelated
States.
to that, RFK Jr. joined the Trump team. Also talked about getting brainworms, which I think you can get from eating roadkill. Because initially he said that the reason he grabbed the bear in the first place is he was planning to eat it. He was going to skin it and like dice it up and eat it.
Which a lot of people actually do in the United States because you need tags, I think, or permits to hunt. And so if you find roadkill, it's like
fresh roadkill.
bonus. Yeah, you can take it home and cut it and all that. I don't know. This guy's just weird though.
He's a super weird guy. Do you
Yeah.
think that if he bans high fructose corn syrup, it's worth it?
I mean, it would. Yeah, there's like a stupid world where a bunch of his stuff ends up being good for Americans, but not for any of the reasons why they think it is.
Yeah.
It's like if you ban high fructose corn syrup and ordinary sugar becomes like more expensive, and the cost of like processed or sugar infused food increases, and people buy less of it, and we eat less of it. It's better for us, but not because there's any weird toxic chemicals that are poisoning us or any stupid fucking shit. So unfortunately,
yeah, I feel like my prediction for 2025 is that if he gets to pass anything, which part of my issue with the entire Trump cabinet is like, who knows? It's just like a giant shithole of who the fuck knows. Like they're all kind of loose cannons. And who knows what they're going to actually pass and what they can pass. I don't even know what limiting factors RFK would have. Is it not official that RFK is in the position until January 20th? Like, is it?
Yeah, he'll be in the position on the 20th, yeah.
But there's no indication that he won't be in the position.
Oh, like that he wouldn't get confirmed by the Senate? I don't believe people are thinking he wouldn't be I haven't heard that.
Like the Senate can't prevent it or anything.
No,
like
they
that.
could. They could just not confirm him.
But
I don't think there's any indication that that's the case right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any like? Because it feels like when Trump got into power in 2016, everyone was super, super worried about a lot of the stuff that did it. And in fairness, he pulled out of the TPP, he did a number of things that I disagreed with. But a lot of his policies were like pretty milquetoast, pretty standard. He like handled COVID pretty poorly, but like not so poorly that it was like completely like a disaster. Maybe
it was a disaster.
You think it was a complete disaster?
It was a complete disaster. Yes.
Really?
Absolutely. There's a reason why we know so much about the government under Trump, and it's because Donald Trump, who was supposed to ran on being a business leader, and the thing about a business leader is like accountable at the end of the day, like politicians aren't. The reason why we know about Fauci and why we know about the governors and why we know about these things is because Trump had no accountability for anything. Trump had no consistent plan for everybody to follow. He was a horrible spiritual leader throughout the entire event. He said privately to Woodward that he was lying about there being a whole bunch of infections because he didn't want the people to panic, but he wasn't doing anything behind the scenes to get anything ready. Donald Trump's handling or mishandling of COVID was pretty horrible and disgusting and terrible. There was just very, very, very poor guidance from the federal government. There was a ton of like internal fighting, not like the good type or the good type where they're trying to figure out like what the good policy is, but just Donald Trump as being an ineffectual leader. I think it was mishandled really horribly. Like there would have been like deaths regardless, but there's just the lack of like coordinated response or coordinated guidance or anything from the federal government, and then the constant blaming of everybody in the government with Trump taking no responsibility for anything, I think was really bad.
Okay. Do you think that, how do you feel about, was it Sweden that had like a very strict like hands-off policy? Like, do you think that Sweden also like poorly mishandled it? I know because I know a lot of your indictments are specifically about like the lack of federal cohesion. So Sweden might have had a very cohesive federal policy. It was just the hands-off. It was Sweden, right? I'm not smoking
Sweden
crack.
is one of the countries that decided to be a little bit less stringent about enforcing like mask mandates and stuff.
Yeah.
Or I think like enforcing like maybe vaccinations.
I think so.
But Sweden had I think the issue, I think there were two problems. This is what I remember reading about the research at the time. But I think the issue is that one, I think they suffered economically about as much as anybody else because a lot of people were genuinely sick or didn't want to go out, and other countries were like having trade issues as well, which impacted Sweden. And then two, I think their death rate was a bit higher than everybody else in Scandinavia.
At first, yeah, it was a little bit higher, and then it kind of like lowered and flattened out.
Sure, but I think altogether, I think by the end they had a few more deaths, I think, than the other.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look.
Okay. But I mean, like the difference is that for those countries, like I'm not going to sit here and harshly judge them because I think they were all trying to do their best. Like Sweden decided for a slightly more hands-off approach. Other countries did way more hands-on. Like,
so say Trump had a federal policy, but his policy was super hands-off, like we're not doing masks or anything, which obviously he can't entirely do. Would you feel that he had handled it better because he at least like had a cohesive moral? I'm trying to understand like what the main indictment you have against Trump's handling of COVID is.
Like everybody's like we have 50 state governors that are all like looking to do their own thing, and there was just very little federal cohesion, it felt like, for like what Trump really expected people to do. So nobody really knew at the end of the day. Like different states had wildly different policies. Like I'm pretty sure that like in Seattle, I had to fucking show a vaccine card to even get into a restaurant at the same time that like Florida was fully open for people. And the fact that it felt like the federal government didn't have much guidance on much of these things, it just seemed like it was very...
When Biden stepped in, did he federalize a lot more of that?
He tried to, but by then I think the majority of our big lockdowns were basically done. Biden was a lot better, I think, on being cohesive about like getting vaccines out. Like I think it was 100 days. He promised 100 million vaccines, I think, and that happened within 50 days. But even if I would have disagreed with the things that Biden did, at least it seemed like he was a leader. Donald Trump was not a leader through COVID. He just sat by and basically blamed everybody else and cried and bitched and moaned and denied. Yeah.
Okay. So any policy that you see that Trump came out with within 2016 to 2020 that was like decent, do you think was a result of his cabinet? Or do you think like by and large his presidency was like as disastrous as presidency possibly could be with the stop guards that we have.
I think it was worse than most people would have honestly thought it would have been. I think that the foreign policy was abysmal.
Yes.
I mean, I think there's something called like the First Step Act, I think, which was fine. It had to do with like helping prison reoffenders or something for federal prisons. I think was okay. But I mean, like other than that, I mean, we got like tax cuts. He tried to kill the ACA. He was obsessed with the border in the dumbest way possible and didn't get anything positive done there. Yeah, it just wasn't much to, like, ideologically, he doesn't know like how the government works. So I mean, like, how can I even look to this guy for any good governmental change? Like, he had no idea what he was doing.
Do you think the next 4 years will be worse than his first term? Obviously, I'm asking you to predict, which is tough.
Yeah, my guess would be yes, but who the fuck knows? It could, like, anything could happen.
What could stop guard it other than like an assassination?
A civil
attempt?
war inside the Republican Party prevents them from moving in a strong direction on anything they want to do because they're so torn against themselves. And this H-1B visa bodes poorly for their unity going forward. I think a unified Republican Party under Donald Trump is really scary because it's probably the most significant threat to like the United States of America, or at least as it was envisioned by the people that found the country, would be like a Trump leadership that is like united in what they want to do. But who knows?
So the outcomes that you see as possible, worst case scenario is a unified party under Trump. Do you see it as a total erosion of the democracy? Is that like what
I think it already has been in a lot of ways. You have a
the
convicted felon who has secured some powers from the Supreme Court that a president or no person in the United States has ever enjoyed before. I think it was a referendum on how we feel about fake news and misinformation, how we feel about leaders that don't take accountability or responsibility, how we feel about leaders that just lie to us. Like, Trump kind of embodies the worst of everything that it could be to like be an American. Like, he's like the worst of all of that, and our country basically co-signed it. Like a braggadocious idiot that takes no accountability or responsibility for anything and is ultimately self-serving at the end of the day, which is what you would expect from, I guess, like a billionaire real estate guy from New York. And then did so with a guy who bought up like a media company, turned it private, leveraged it to help Trump win. A lot of weird foreign intervention. It's just like a lot of really bad stuff that all kind of like was, I think, validated in the last election cycle. Yeah.
So worst outcome, civil war, decay of democracy. Could you see him finding a way around? Because I know Ben Shapiro's biggest pushback on you about Trump, I think when you guys talked, was you were like, yeah, but January 6th. And he was like, yeah, but he couldn't, it didn't
I mean,
happen.
he did.
He's got two,
It did happen.
he got 2 terms, and then he's
It's
done.
the first time, I think, maybe in 200 years that the certification was pushed back a day. It was. He failed in other ways, but I think that was largely just due to his cowardness and incompetence than anything else. But I mean, yeah, who knows? It's hard to say what'll happen.
Yeah. Because I know Ben Shapiro's biggest pushback is basically, yeah, but like basically the government will stand. Like, there's enough stop guards that even if he does try to steal the government again, he can't. He
Yeah,
won't.
but now that he knows what failed him last time, now he's trying to work around that this time. There's a reason why he chose a vice president that explicitly said he would do what Pence didn't do. The reason why he's looking to staff the government with people who would explicitly allow him to do the things that they blocked him from doing last time. So that's kind of the concern. Yeah.
Do you think that the military, because like the final question with that is, if it evolves all in that direction, do you think that the military would take like civil force against people if they rose up and were like angry and rioting over and like potentially moving towards a war regarding the certification? Say he tries to push it back again and it's pushed back like 5 days, 10 days. People are probably going to start rioting, presumably, you would hope, you would assume.
I have no idea.
Do you think
Maybe
the
they would, maybe they
military-
wouldn't. Who knows?
Do you think the military would go up against the civilians?
I have no idea. It's hard. It's impossible to say.
Gotcha. Is there any way within the Constitution that Trump would have the ability to undo the term limits so that he could just run again, or he could extend it?
It doesn't really have, the Constitution is not very relevant at this point because Donald Trump and the Supreme Court have co-signed basically doing whatever they want. So I like, the question is just a matter of like, does he want to do it? If he wants to do it now and he's got the right people around him, he'll find a way to do it. The Constitution is, it's just a safeguard that is there for people that care about the Constitution. But I mean, like, Vance himself has advocated for betraying the Constitution, like he said it in plain English. So yeah, and Donald Trump himself has tweeted out or social truthed out that sometimes you can suspend the Constitution if you need to. So the Constitution is not really a safeguard anymore. It's the people that are around him that would be the safeguards. And it seems like he's removing those people. So
Do you think if there's this like, I don't know what this Matt Gaetz, Laura Loomer H-1B schism is, other than calling them like, feels like white supremacists, probably. White something. Do you think that schism would be enough to disempower him, or do you think fundamentally they would still pull together?
It's hard to say. The problem, again, is because conservatives are so valueless and they're so lost, it's very easy for them to be led astray by crazy people. I think the vast majority of people fighting against H-1Bs, I think, are probably just people that feel like depressed workers who are having income opportunities threatened by people from overseas. I don't think the majority of them are racist or like Nazis or whatever, but I think a growing chunk of the conservative MAGA movement are Nazis, and a decent chunk of them are just racists. And I think that the just racist and the Nazi people can work together and bring more people into their movement without the other people even being aware that that's what's happening, because they're so kind of like lost on everything else. So we'll see what happens on that. It is really funny though that 10 years ago, who did the learn to code thing? The conservatives roasted the fuck out of Democrats for telling truck drivers to just learn to code.
Yeah.
And now the conservatives are like, actually, just teach us to code. We don't want Indians. Like, we will learn to code now. We changed
Yeah.
our mind. We actually did. So it's, but yeah.
Yeah. Is there, if there are other felonies like the Matt Gaetz investigation, or my understanding is that RFK is being investigated, or maybe even like openly admitted to molesting a babysitter or anything, are all these positions open to be filled by people if they have like actual felony charges? I know that Trump can pardon them. I'm trying to understand like what would be the effect on Matt Gaetz's position if the FBI investigation finds him guilty of like,
I don't think there is an FBI investigation. I think that's just the subcommittee. That was just like a Senate or congressional like ethics investigation. That's not the same as like a DOJ investigation. The FBI is a part of the Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice is part of the executive branch. And so the head of the DOJ, the head of the Department of Justice, is the Attorney General, who will now be taking orders directly from Donald Trump. So if he doesn't want somebody investigated, then they won't be investigated. If they want to investigate somebody, even if that means fabricating things like they did with Hunter Biden, then they will investigate them. It just depends on what his feelings are. But there will be no federal investigations of Trump loyalists. Trump has already signaled that he will pardon you if you lie for him, like he did with Roger Stone, and he will kill investigations into you if he feels like there's no wrongdoing, like he tried to do with himself with firing Comey. And he's not going to investigate you if you're loyal to him, and he'll come after you if you're not, like he did with Hunter Biden. So yeah, all of this has like already been done. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Another thing that happened this year was Musk. Did Musk buy Twitter this year? Or was that last year? It's got to be last year that he bought Twitter.
When you say last year, you mean 2023? He probably bought it in 2022. That'd be my guess, but I don't remember. 2023 is a long year. He might have bought it in 2023.
2022.
Yeah, it was 2022? Okay.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago.
So many different great things. Where is he? Come on up here, Elon. He created the first major American car company in generations, and his rocket company is the only reason we can now send American astronauts into space. Come here. Take over, Elon. Just take over. Hi, everyone.
Did he rebrand his hat to being black because he likes
Because he's
X?
dark MAGA, is what he said. Dark MAGA or whatever.
He's so cool. He's like actually the pastor's son who just didn't quite get bullied enough.
His name is Elon Musk.
This jump though is so cute.
American car
And so
company in
bad.
generations, and his rocket company is the only reason we can now send American astronauts into space.
Just a real quick thing, because I see some dude who's been arguing forever in YouTube chat. EESIII, this guy that you're arguing with, Charlie, he's just repeating conservative talking points. Nothing that he's saying about that 14th Amendment ruling is true. There's no part of that says that the insurrection has to be a charge, or that he has to be convicted of a crime, or that a government has to agree with it. There's absolutely no language in that whatsoever. Instead of letting him provide that positive, you should ask him to source in the 14th Amendment where it says that. He wwon't be able to. He's just repeating dumb shit that he heard from dumber people. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Trump won the election, obviously. How did you feel about the election stream?
I thought it was, for the most part, fun, the last half of it.
Yes. Okay, Vadim.
Yo, Vadim, pull up Arizona, please.
Hey, Vadim, show me Georgia again. I just want to see it. Show me the outstanding in Georgia. Show me the outstanding. Okay, yeah, wait. Okay, Vadim, come over here. We need to check out our second path. Go back. I need to know that. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. You went back. My bad. Show me all of Pennsylvania. Vadim, talk to me. Show me Michigan. Show me Wisconsin. That was a toss-up. Vadim. Don't show me Georgia anymore. I don't need to see this. Go back to Wisconsin and show me something good. Vadim, they finished with all the Republican votes for Wisconsin, right? They're counting those first. Vadim, be gentle with me. No, show me Pennsylvania. God damn it.
That's what the people want to
Show me.
And we're looking freaking cooked on this.
At what point did you know the election was over? Which swing state? boss.
Well, I mean, like it's easy to say this in
Hindsight.
retrospect, but the first signs of trouble were the very first reporting that Miami was 50-50. That was really bad.
What is Miami? Is it usually much more blue? Miami-Dade?
Miami-Dade is, yes, it's not supposed to be 50-50. That should not happen. Yeah.
There's a huge Latino population, right? Which was like one of the biggest shifts, right?
I think so.
Latino
Yeah, in some
males,
states. Yeah.
older Latino males. Other news in 2024. I'm telling you, I don't have that much that's good. There was major layoffs in IT that continued, and yet despite that, Trump is promising to protect H-1B jobs, which will probably not help with the tech layoff that's going on.
Based. Fuck tech workers. They've had it too good for too long, and they need to reel that shit back. Comp sci workers are the most well-paid graduates in the United States. Their expectations for what an economy should look like are fucking delusional, and they are due for some reality checks.
Goodbye, subscribers. I actually mostly just agree. I feel like most IT companies during like the Silicon Valley like bulge, there was a lot of hiring that probably wasn't necessary because there was so much extra cash. There's just like so
Yeah, they're making
much money.
the growth that these companies are experiencing. Like the S&P 500 is led by so many of these tech companies. It's just absolutely insane. And then you got some tech companies that are like completely just disconnected from reality. Like Tesla is like totally disconnected from reality. Nvidia, like if you would have said like 10 years ago, if you would have said 5 years ago maybe. Remember Nvidia, the company that you buy graphics cards from? That's going to be like the company that was the highest market capitalization of any company in the entire world by far, which I think Nvidia was, right? They beat. Are they right now? I don't even know. Like it's just like it's
insane.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's like where did Nvidia come out of? It was like out of nowhere. Do you think this comes back to the H-1B, which I feel like the blowout over the H-1B stuff has been super fun. Have we heard any response from Trump about Laura Loomer?
I don't know about Laura Loomer in particular.
'Cause she was close to him. She was like on the private jet. She was like one of the advisors.
Yeah, no, I think that once the bad press came out about her, he basically ditched her.
What was her bad press?
That she's fucking insane and she was hanging around Trump too much, and that Trump was maybe cheating on his wife again, or I don't know what him and his wife are doing, but yeah.
Gotcha. We got some other great H-1B. God, I hate this woman.
The H-1B thing, though, represents, it's very funny, though, because this is like the neocon versus the MAGA type of econ stuff. Like under Bush, you always had like these Tea Partiers and small government people that didn't like the expansion of the Department of Education with No Child Left Behind. They didn't crack down on immigration enough. But like the reality is business owners and people who are invested in the economy in general like these things because it helps the economy grow. More government spending usually helps the economy. More immigration helps the economy. And H-1B is like a continuation of that. Conservatives saying that like, oh, we're kind of populist, but in reality, like we want to have our workers too, obviously.
Yeah.
And Elon Musk and Trump are both billionaires who are invested in the economy and invested in workers coming over. So it's not surprising at all that they would fight the neocon position on that. But the MAGA people behind them are somehow surprised that billionaires are advocating for billionaire interests. So, but it is
I know.
what it is.
The tech right and like the kind of like the Christian worker right that was fusing together. I was wondering what would be the thing that would separate them, because it's obvious that they're not going to stay together. Their interests are way too far apart. The benefits of a tech billionaire is not that benefits like a truck driver. They just have
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
But it also depends on how much like misinformation people get fed too. Like you might be able to convince these people otherwise that it is in their interest to believe in a particular thing. Like a lot of poor people still believe in trickle down economics, which is retarded.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah. So recently President Musk was backed by Trump. Have you seen like all of the coping from Trump and Musk about the President Musk stuff?
Yeah, I saw the clip of Trump saying that like, well, he can't be president because he's not American, and I don't know. Who knows where that relationship will go? It's hard to say.
I'm so curious to like watch. Do you think that they'll schism? Because I feel like Trump is not gonna put up with, like, you can't have like two big narcissists.
I seriously doubt there's as much like division between Musk and Trump as people are implying there is. Although Trump's truth tweet about Musk coming back to Mar-a-Lago was incredibly fucking cringe.
So weird.
Don't know
I thought
what
that was
that was about.
I thought that was fake. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna
so
lie. The
did I,
first time
yeah.
I saw it, I was like, "This is AI. There's no way this is real."
Or
It was
not,
real?
or just like I thought it was just like somebody did like a Photoshop or like
It's like an
but
ex-girlfriend.
it was like
It's
an
like
actual-
a girlfriend being like, "Please go home."
Yeah, it was really weird. But both of these guys have like incredibly fragile egos, so it's really who knows. Like, yeah.
Do you think that the party is more aligned with Trump, though? Do you think that the voters are more aligned with Trump still than Musk? Like the loyalty is fundamentally Trump?
Absolutely. Trump was not supported because he supported Musk. Musk was supported because he's supporting Trump.
Yeah.
And all the Silicon Valley people's lines to Trump were through Musk, but like the people are still largely supportive of Trump. So if there was a big schism between Trump and Musk, the vast majority of them would support Trump, but a non-insignificant margin would leave because of Musk, I think. So that's weird. But like Musk is just seen basically as an aggregator for, or an augmenter for Trump, basically. He bought X to help Trump. He's doing these things to help Trump. He wants to build the economy for Trump. So yeah, the loyalty's with Trump first, yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody knows the system better than me. I know the H-1B. I know the H-2B. Nobody knows it better than me. I know the H-1B very well, and it's something that I frankly use, and I shouldn't be allowed to use. We shouldn't have it. Very, very bad for workers.
As we speak, we're finalizing H-1B regulations so that no American worker is replaced ever again. H-1Bs should be used for top, highly paid talent to create American jobs, not as inexpensive labor program to destroy American jobs.
Why did you change your mind on H-1B visas, sir?
I didn't change my mind. I've always felt we have to have the most competent people in our country. We need competent people. We need smart people coming into our country. And we need a lot of people coming in. We're going to have jobs like we've never had before.
But sir, you said you changed your...
Nobody knows the system better.
Interesting. I wonder why he's like willing to change his tune a little bit about being like, yeah, H-1Bs, I use them, but they're bad, to like, no, of course we're supporting them. Do you think it's because of Musk specifically? Like it feels like that shift that we see amongst these, almost a decade. It has to be Musk's influence and Vivek's.
It could
I'm
be.
assuming.
Or it could just literally be he just wants to, I have no idea. Actually, I'm not even going to guess. I don't know. It might be Musk and Vivek. It's hard again because I don't know if Trump knows anything about the economy at all. I can never tell when he speaks if he has any idea what the fuck he's talking about. So I have no idea.
You're still split on like whether he's like malicious or just stupid.
Well, no, I'm not split on that. I think he is stupid, but he might be a little bit less stupid when it comes to H-1Bs, but I have no clue.
Gotcha.
Like, I don't even know if Trump's businesses would even utilize H-1B visas that much. Like, if he's doing like commercial real estate and shit, if you're talking like construction workers and stuff, like, are these even H-1B, maybe H-2B jobs? Like, I have no idea. I really don't know.
Yeah. How do you feel about, since we're moving into global politics, how do you feel about Biden kind of like pushing through a bunch of extra aid and taking off a bunch of the limits on Ukraine? Do you think that under Trump that will like immediately change, or?
I mean, it's probably just things. People rush to do some things at the ending of the presidency. I mean, I wish it would have been done earlier, but we don't really have the support in the U.S. for it. So I think Biden did a decent job with what he could. Maybe he could have pushed for more foreign policy-wise, but I mean, who knows? But yeah, we don't have like a coherent, a house divided against itself cannot stand. Like, we're so divided at home about what America even is or means that it's hard to present like a unified front when it comes to supporting allies across the world. It's hard to say, yeah.
How do you predict the dynamic between Putin and Trump to look? Because before, it felt like in 2016, if I remember, Trump was a pretty big Putin friend. He liked Putin. He was like, we got the best relationship. He's a swell guy. He was definitely working on like improving relations with Russia. Whereas it feels like what Russia's doing right now is like diametrically opposed to anything that America can be for. Do you think that he's going to try to smooth over the relationship with Putin?
I have no idea. That could go any direction. It could be that like Putin sees like an opportunity to end the war in Ukraine and goes to Trump and is like, listen, let's do peace. Give me some territory from Ukraine and we'll call it even Stevens. And now Trump is really good because now he solved the war and Putin gets what he wants and Trump gets what he wants and Ukraine is kind of forced to accept the concession because they're probably not going to win because they're not going to get the support they need. Or it could be that Donald Trump gets really irritated that Putin is not accepting a deal that he thinks favorable, and who knows what ramping up support from the U.S. side would look like. It literally is impossible to predict Trump on like
anything.
Is
he less predictable than any politician, basically? Broadband or
less predictable? I don't know. The problem is just I just don't think he has a lot of knowledge of these things, so it's hard to like if I were to say that like I'm having issues with like the studio computer and I give you like 5 options for how to like reformat the disk, I have no idea what you would pick or why you would pick them. Same thing with Donald Trump. I have no clue if given like some outcomes for Ukraine, I have no idea why he would pick them or what he would say. Or if you were to ask me like a good training modality or therapy modality for a patient, I would probably pick the most complicated. Like I don't know. I don't know how he would make any of the decisions. I truly don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah. Why don't you roll the ad right now, and I'm gonna grab more water and stuff.
Okay. All right. We have I don't know if the scenes just changed a ton, guys. Hopefully not. We have an ad read. Get ready. Okay. Here it comes.
It's your favorite
Be careful.
company. Hey guys, today I'm excited by our sponsor, Private Internet Access. Stephen, could you tell us what is a VPN?
Imagine that you just ordered the most fun game in the universe, okay? And you have the most annoying neighbor ever. Imagine that that video game shows up outside and the whole world can see the game that you ordered, including your obnoxious neighbor. Private Internet Access is a VPN service that allows you to encrypt all of your traffic and disguise your IP address from people that might be peeking in on the internet.
Private Internet Access is one of the most transparent VPNs on the market. It is one of the few that has been proven in court for its no logs policy, and it's also been audited by Deloitte. It's been downloaded at least 30 million times, and you can use it on every major platform. Unrelated to this ad, actually, I had a friend that I reached out to who's very tech savvy, and they personally actually recommended PIA as a VPN service. So I was really excited when they reached out to me because I felt like I could organically promote their company as it's something that I've used. One subscription protects unlimited devices, making it an ideal subscription for anybody who's serious about online privacy.
Private Internet Access isn't just about security. It also allows you to bypass any regional locks on content that you might want to watch online. I was just talking to my good friend Kyla about a TV show where people crash land on Earth and are trying to go back into outer space, and it's called Scavenger's Reign. I don't know what this show is, and I don't care about this show, but I do know that if I was a Canadian and I was trapped in Canada and unable to watch it because it's only available on the American version of Netflix, I would need a VPN, which Private Internet Access is, that would allow me to access that content. It also offers things like peer-to-peer sharing, so that you can share files between different systems that are logged into the same VPN. Generally, wherever you are in the world, however many devices you have, it will allow you to bypass any regional locks that will let you watch the content that you've already paid for, no matter where you are. You can sign up now risk-free because there is a 30-day money-back guarantee. They provide 24/7 customer support. You get a big discount if you sign up with the link that we have posted below. Sign up today, protect your digital life with Private Internet Access.
Use our link piavpn.com/bridgespodcast below for a special discount, 83% off, and you'll also get 4 extra free months. Protect your digital life today with Private Internet Access. I think so, yeah. 83.
And if you're trying to get porn and you live in Florida,
True.
now you need
Or Texas.
or Texas. I think Texas is already like that, but
Well, now maybe they've been in a porn desert. The worst part of all these like porn bans is isn't it just porn sites that won't comply with the ID stuff? Like, won't people just go to different, more seedy websites?
yeah, which is part of the argument.
Wow. Good job. That was such a good read.
Thank you.
Do you like listening to your voice?
I think it was a really good read. I signed up for 4 more accounts right now,
Did you?
actually. Yeah. I use Private Internet Access to hide that I was using more accounts to sign up for Private Internet Access. So
I don't believe you at all. I hate listening to ads. I love PIA, but I hate listening to my own voice in ads. Okay. What do you want to do this year? Are you still going to Japan? Do you want to go to Japan still?
yeah, that's on the horizon. We're going to, are we allowed to say we're going soon?
Yeah, I think so.
To Atlanta?
Yeah.
To talk to the Ben Jordan?
Mm-hmm.
I even got his name right. Look at that.
you.
Oh my God. That's going to be fun.
You know who I'm most excited for?
Oh, Biden said he would talk to us too? Besides Biden?
My daddy. No, Dr. K.
Oh shit. That's in like a week or two, isn't it?
Yes.
Ooh, that's
I know.
crazy.
I'm so excited.
Did you get him for anything else? So Dan could, no, I'm just kidding.
No, I did not. Weirdly enough, I was like, You know, I bet you he'd come on if we asked him to. Do you think he would?
No, and I don't think I would facilitate that. So
Just burn that bridge.
yeah, I'm good
You're good.
on that.
Which guest that we had this year was your favorite?
For Bridges?
Mm-hmm.
Is it in good taste to say?
You love them all equally.
Exactly.
They're all so good. Who's somebody that you feel like you should lean into the relationship more? You'd like to have back more?
All of
often?
them. No, I'm just kidding.
Like, who did you jive with the most?
I think the challenge when choosing good guests, and this is something we're probably going to focus a lot more on this year, is did I send you the document? Like, no more women, only white people, ages 20 to, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. That's why I'm tanning now, so I can bypass some of those.
Yeah. The only, I think the challenge is that you have to choose people that are like topically relevant,
Yeah.
which is challenging. Like, what are things that we're talking about in the world? And then also choosing people that are entertaining. That's very difficult. It's very easy to find people who are like knowledgeable and will talk about things, but are hard sells like entertainment wise.
But I feel like our evergreen episodes are actually the best. So like I feel like before when I was booking guests, I was trying to think about like to some degree current events and somewhat booking around it. Like, you know, as we come up to the election, trying to get political people, which became a nightmare. But our best performing
I
episodes
totally take
are-
back what I said. Never mind. The relevance actually doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's just the entertaining part.
Yeah. It just
Because
it's just
our best
evergreen.
ones were probably Flint and Milo.
Flint, and then after that is actually the Scientology video.
Yeah. Flint and Milo were just, both of them were amazingly entertaining guests. So was Ryan Macbeth. Like, yeah. But like these people could come on and probably talk about anything and it would be entertaining. Like
Yeah.
we could have like a movie rating stream with like these people and it would be probably funny, good content. Yeah.
I know. It's so tough because there's a lot of people that will come on and their content's like pretty good, but they're like only so-so to engage with. Do you think that if we spent more time with them, something Drag was talking to me about in Toronto when I was visiting him, which was like, he was like, you should have guests around like hanging out a little bit more so that you like build a bit of a dynamic before you start trying to film so that it feels a little bit more natural. Because it seems like the main people that we did really, really well with, like Milo is somebody that if you meet Milo, he's just like one of those like ultimate charismatic type characters. Like I think anyone could talk to him about anything at any time and it would be interesting, fun. And he's easy to banter off of.
Yeah. Actually, I guess now too, this is kind of stupid now, but now when I think about it in retrospect, these guys are also entertaining because it's their jobs too. Like I think Milo is obviously a big YouTuber. Flint was trying to get it more into YouTube, but he had a mind for it as well. Like you talked about all the prep that he did to go on Joe Rogan's show. Ryan Macbeth is obviously YouTuber. So yeah, I guess like these guys have like a background in terms of like presenting their stuff. So that makes sense.
It just sucks because I feel like it would be super valuable to get more academics on, but academics and like experts in general are just bad at speaking a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Not bad at speaking, but bad at speaking in an interesting and engaging way.
Yeah.
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 And I don't know, is there anything that we could prep them with to help, or probably not?
Drugs.
Get them drunk.
No, I meant like drug them, but alcohol might work too. No, I don't know.
Just sneak them Molly.
I'm not sure actually. It might just come down to guest selection maybe, but not necessarily picking people that are content relevant, but picking people that are just like have a penchant for being entertaining. Maybe.
Entertaining.
Yeah.
That's really tough with academics. That's a tough one because if you listen to academics, almost all of the media that they have available of them is almost always going to be very stiff interviews where even if they are an interesting person, it's probably going to be hard to tell from the medium that they're using, right? It's going to be like academic presentations or it'll be academic interviews, which are like small time radio shows or whatever at the university, which just doesn't really facilitate somebody's big personality if they have one.
Maybe, yeah.
So do you think the biggest selection criteria for podcasting is basically just charisma?
It's a big one, yeah. This is probably also why people tend to like make the rounds. So like when a guy shows up on one podcast and he's entertaining, like everybody wants him on because he's like, oh shit, an entertaining guest. And he like makes the rounds. So yeah, I don't know if there's like a better secret selection criteria there to look for people other than just seeing people on other podcasts. And yeah.
How do you feel about like the different internet cultures? Like you've been in the streaming culture for a long time, but now you're getting exposed to the podcaster culture. Are you inserted or interested in inserting yourself in any way with more of the traditional podcasters? Do you see a difference? Like streamers are oftentimes more mature, a little bit less reliable, in my experience, at least booking them.
Yeah, maybe, but like it feels like podcasting audiences either go like hard right in terms of all being weird, creepy, conservative. I shouldn't say creepy, but just like bad conservative shit, or they're like they're like they're not political, but they're far left, and that like I listen. Like it wouldn't surprise me. You know Dan Carlin? Like
Love him.
if he were to mention like I might do a Bridges podcast with Destiny, that even though I don't think he's like overtly a very political person, or I don't know if he's like political at all, it wouldn't surprise me if like his audience is like, wait, this is the pro genocide hates Palestinians guy, just because they've heard things of me from other left leaning people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. What
That's got to be why he's not getting back to me.
probably because of the Israeli takes.
It's
Yeah.
your fault. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's gonna do a history on Israel, and we'll know. We'll know.
He will. And he'll come out. Never mind. We'll see.
Come out where?
He'll come out with some anti-Destiny takes. He'll have clips of me for all of the wrong arguments. Yeah.
Is there anyone you wish that we could get?
I want to talk to Biden.
Before, like, okay.
I tried to look up emails of all the interesting people for the J6 stuff, but their emails are not publicly
It is
available,
not.
right?
I was
Like I wanted
digging.
Hirschman, I wanted Cohen. Cohen we might be able to do, but now that I've looked at stuff, I'm not sure. William Barr, getting some of these like more political people would have been super interesting, but it's really hard to find their contact info. Maybe I should reach like privately to find it. Yeah, I don't know.
It's like a nightmare trying to find, especially J6 people. Like anyone who's currently political probably won't want to come on the show, and if they do, it's just going to end up being like
Super soft, yeah.
super soft.
Maybe on the back of this New York stuff I'm going to be doing, maybe I'll have, because every time I do a little bit of like political stuff, like other political people start to notice and reach out. So maybe that'll lead to stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we're having Terry Susplat. Do you know who that is? On. He's the speechwriter for Barack Obama.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. Friend of the community, Bing, helped connect us with him.
That's cool. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, but I wonder if he'll also have some advice about how to
Get Obama on.
get Obama on.
True.
If you had Obama on, what would you ask him? If actually, I'm going to change it. If you had Obama on and you could ask him a question and you were guaranteed that he wouldn't PR answer you, he would give you like the real answer, what would you ask him?
What was the biggest reality check that he got while being president of the United States? I'm sure that he came into office with some naivety. Everybody does for every job. And I'm sure there was something that he saw that dramatically changed his perspective. Something maybe related to, not that I believe this is true, but maybe like for Guantanamo, like maybe he comes in like very much like torture is wrong, we can't do this or blah, blah, blah. And then he sees like, maybe they did stop like some crazy terrorist attacks, or maybe it is really hard to manage these. And they're like, fuck, I can't change by it. This is like crazy. It would just be interesting to hear of the things that he went in thinking that one thing on, and then after being exposed to things, his mind changed dramatically. I feel like it would be interesting hearing that. Yeah.
Where do you feel like your mind has been changed the most in the last year? Like, do you think you were, where was an area that maybe you weren't naive, but at least like you had a position that now a year later you would fully disagree with? Is there anything?
I don't know. I feel like one of the best things I've done over the past few years is like I'm trying to match my convictions with my beliefs. So anything that I've had my mind changed on, I think it probably is something that started off as like a pretty low conviction belief.
What
Like,
do you mean by that?
like over the
disparity of
Luigi
conviction
stuff, like people have asked me like as a kind of peripheral question, like how do you feel about the death penalty? And I'm like, I'm in favor of the death penalty, but I'm like 51-49 in favor. Like I could be changed on it. So it might be that like in a year I'm actually like anti-death penalty, but like I don't have like a strong position on it now. So I've tried to do a better job at like having accurate conviction for the strength of my belief on a given thing. I think I've done a decent job at matching that for the past couple of years.
Okay, gotcha. So like if you were at like 51% in favor of opposed to Luigi, basically that would say that the way that you talk about it, you would want to make sure that you would actually be able to be moved by like 2% information.
Yeah. And I think I've said as much on stream. I'll literally say like, I'm like 55-45 on this or whatever. The Luigi thing I'm quite a bit against. Although I'm open to having people change my mind on it, but yeah.
Okay. Interesting. What do you feel like you were naive about coming into like podcasting? What's been like the biggest learning curve? Would you do
Interviewing
different?
people is really hard. I think I've gotten quite a bit better at it, but it's a challenging thing. It's a totally different dynamic. You have to spotlight the other person a lot more. There's like annoying verbal things that I would say that I've tried really hard not to. Stating a thing without giving a useless preamble. I'm trying to think of an example of this. Like, I try to do this in my writing, like getting rid of like in my opinion, or it seems that, or like things like this. I try to get rid of like these little like filler words and just like asking a person
Yeah.
straight up questions. Yeah.
Do you think about concision a lot, like when you speak?
Because
Because you practice the same talking points a lot.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I do. I try to be concise because when I listen to people ramble, it drives me crazy, and I want to be able to convey stuff snappily and yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. What about yourself? Have you like learned anything about yourself in this year?
My penchant for drama is dramatically decreased with
Five
Vyvanse.
Why? Why do you think that is?
I think dealing with mentally unwell people who are trying to mindfuck you is really exciting, and I just don't feel the same need to have that excitement in my life now. So
Basically, your dopamine is satisfied.
I guess that's the neuropharmacological theory, I guess.
It's like the TikTok neurological pharmacological theory.
Well, I think that's the idea, one of the ideas, because like neurotransmitters are like things that we modify with drugs, but like they're really complicated.
Yeah.
But I think the idea is that like brains have some baseline of dopamine, and so an ADHD person's baseline is not being met, so a stimulant like hits that baseline, so they're not like freaking out looking for stimulation. Is like one of the ideas behind why increasing dopamine is like a good thing for an ADHD brain.
Possibly, yeah.
So-
I mean, it's interesting when you look into like neurological stuff because did you see my stuff about TD that I sent you?
TD Ameritrade?
Tardive dyskinesia, I think is the
I have no idea.
tardive. Yeah. It's a neurological disorder that it develops when people who have stimulants sometimes. It's like a motor symptom. You didn't look into it at all?
Nope.
Okay.
When did you send it? What is this about?
I've wondered. I'm trying to think about how to go into this politely. You know how people are always shitting on you for the jaw stuff, like the jaw movements.
Sure.
I've wondered if there has been a slight increase in some of those jaw movements, which could possibly be explained by stimulant use.
I don't think so, because it only happens around the letter S, and I'm not like randomly moving my jaw otherwise. But
Like you're not grinding your teeth more or anything like that.
no. And I know what teeth grinding is like because I've done MDMA, so
Do you teeth grind a lot on MDMA?
absolutely. That's one of the reasons why. But people, I don't even know if on therapeutic levels of stimulant medication that would even be a thing that would happen. The problem is
Not
a lot
the
of people
teeth
mix
grinding
up like
typically.
when people say methamphetamine, they're not really talking about methamphetamine. They're talking about recreational dosing of methamphetamine, which is much higher than therapeutic dosing.
Yeah.
And that's also going to be true of like a Vyvanse. Like I'm sure if I popped like 3 of my Vyvances, I would start to fucking meth out and be like fucking crazy or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, if you go back and you watch older videos of mine, my mouth moves way more. Like it's something that I've brought in quite a bit. It might seem more exaggerated here because I don't see a monitor, so I'm not thinking to correct it as much. But when I'm streaming, I can see myself in the corner. So if my S's are like moving a little bit more, like I have like that mental corrective thing. But like in person, I'm not thinking about it as much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. TD is just it's so like there's a really interesting case studies. There's a lot of young boys. So OCD and ADHD will often get misdiagnosed in young boys. But as you can imagine, if you give somebody with OCD a stimulant, it's not good. It's not a good time for the kiddo. They'll see some increases in symptoms, like their focus will typically be better because they'll be able to focus through like obsessions and stuff like that. But then you also see a lot of like other side effects. TD is one of the biggest hallmarks of going like, okay, this kid is getting a lot of stimulants.
What does TD stand for?
Tardive dyskinesia.
Tardive?
Tardive. Tardive. Tardive.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. And so one of the best ways that you treat it is obviously getting them off of stimulants or dropping the dosage a lot and then adding something like an MOA or something like that so that you're getting similar like focus benefits without as much of like the dysregulations. It's also an effective way with ADHD people that are, say, a lot of people who take stimulants get a really flattened affect. And so one of the ways that you mitigate that is dropping the stimulant dosage and then increasing like an SSRI or an MOA so that you're still getting the focus benefits, but it has a lot less flattening of like emotional experience and affective experience as well.
Sure.
Yeah. Which is why I was suggesting it to look into. But yeah, if the jaw thing is kind of like being consistent your whole life, then it wouldn't really be relevant.
Maybe I'll do speech therapy this year just to like.
Have you never done speech therapy?
No, I have.
Okay.
When I was in school, this is how I used to pronounce my S's when I was in grade school. I used to make all of them on the side of my mouth right here by doing this.
Yeah.
But when I went to speech therapy to correct my S's, right now, okay, so if I say my S right now, I don't think my jaw is moving that much. Yeah, but I'm still, the placement is not correct. It's on the side of my mouth. So if I'm not thinking, I'm really speaking really fast and I'm doing a really big debate, I'm trying to, like, my jaw will move a little bit
Okay.
more.
It does come out more when you're like
Yes,
going quick.
because my placement is wrong. I know how to place it correctly, but when I place it correctly, I will sound like I have a lisp. So right now it's placed on the front left of my mouth. If I center my S's right here, my jaw does not move at all, but now it sounds like I actually have a lisp for real.
Is that developed by, is that like a motor neuron issue, or like what's creating that? Do you know?
I have no idea. My guess is that if I were to practice a lot or go to a speech therapist and really look at my speech and how I make my S's, or if I just practice this more, maybe it would go away. But like when I'm frontally pronouncing, like placing my tongue on my S's here, my jaw's not moving at all. This is like perfect jaw placement, but now it really sounds like I have a lisp like crazy.
Yeah, it
So
does.
this is how I pronounce my S's, and they sound normal this way, but sometimes my jaw moves because it's on the left part of my mouth that my
No, I
tongue
can
is
see
going.
that.
in.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's actually super interesting. It's actually kind of wild that people go after you so much for that as like a.
Well, that's because there's a lot of, people will go after me for literally anything, but there's also a lot of, not the word shame. What am I talking about? Not stimulus, not shame. There's a lot of blank around.
Stigma.
Yeah, there's a lot of stigma around stimulants and everything related to it. So,
Do you think that's why? Because I feel like I see a lot of like lefties go after you for it specifically.
yeah, they call me faggot and everything too. Lefties will go after me for anything. Everything is on the table when you don't like a person. So,
That's true.
based.
I feel like some of the most aggressive misogyny I get is often from gay men who are left leaning.
Based.
Yeah.
My gay queens. Okay.
Gay queens. Okay. I was gonna play a game of Who Said It with you.
Isn't there like a Twitch or terrorist website?
Yeah, so I was doing that, but like I was trying to mild it out a little bit for Bridges. I'm trying to think if there's anything else though. I feel like one thing that I have been learning in the last year, specifically in like working with you, is the mindset between. I've noticed there's actually a really big distinction between like how you work as an academic and probably also a counselor versus like somebody who's more entrepreneurial. Because I feel like this year I've like come up against a lot of like roadblocks as far as like being uncertain about what to do, which has like slowed a lot of my work. But in academia, if you're uncertain about what to do, you typically go to the professor, you get like an outline of what to do, and then you go forward. And if you go forward without checking in my experience in academia, that would be a huge no-no. Like you don't do that, right? And so I've noticed, for example, like when you and I talk, I think your approach to business is, I think a lot of times you like want most of the people who work with you and stuff to have lots of freedom to kind of do what they want, and you'll just kind of like yes it at the end if you like it or not.
Sure.
But it creates like this big area of issue for me in that it's antithetical to everything I've learned in my like adult career up until this point. But I even see this in like my own work, where I'm constantly like pausing and like looking for like almost like the green light to go ahead and do something.
Yeah, self-employment work there's a huge difference between that and like employment work. In America, and it probably leads over in Canada a bit as well. There's a romanticization of entrepreneurs or of people who are like self-employed. So like that's like the best thing to do. You get freedom and all that bullshit. But the reality is like some people are just wired like really well for like self-driven work. Other people are wired really well for like more directed work, and people will normally load the self-directed work to be way better, but I think that they're just two different styles of doing work. Yeah, it's just two different styles of doing work. Like there are people like I've said this a lot, like you know Zerka. Do you remember Zerka? Like that's a guy who desperately needs a manager, and if he had one, he would be like the funniest. He would be so unbelievably successful.
But he would never.
But because he tries to do he would. Well, if he had one, right, and had to. But because he tries to do self-direction, he can't manage his own time. He can't manage his own life, and it falls apart. And now he's like nothing again. Yeah. But if he had like a guy who owned him, like told him like you need to do here, stop talking to girls, stop doing drugs, like he would be unbelievably successful. But yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like this last year, a large thing that I've realized about myself is that I just need to like greenlight stuff more, like in and of myself, and like try things, and like wait for less external green lights to go ahead and do stuff. Because like at the end of the day in this industry, you can like pivot pretty quickly, but you do need to like always kind of be doing stuff and building stuff. And so I feel like that's been like a major realization I've had, especially in like the last like month. Shout out Thinking Monk in large part for like challenging me, I think, a little bit on this.
Yeah, people are, when you fail in established paths, it shows a high degree of probably lack of competency. And so people are very much afraid of failure because there are a whole bunch of published set of norms and expectations. Like if you see so many patients or if you go through this like academic program, like you should be on these timelines. And if you're not, it's a failure. But I feel like in the self-employed world, it's a lot different. And that like if you're not failing or trying things, that's actually the incompetent part. But it's a huge like role reversal of what you would expect, where there is no actual like set way to do things and be successful, which is why I'm so critical of like people that are entrepreneurs that give speeches or whatever. They'll tell you what they'll tell you. It's like they'll tell you how to be successful, but what they're really telling you is how they were successful. Yeah. And the way that it worked for them might not at all be the way that it would work for you or somebody else. And so the fact that there isn't a set path means that you have to try a lot. And you might fail on a ton of things, but like that's okay because you figure out what works, what doesn't work, and then you just keep chewing forward. And there's nobody there to like chew you out for like, you fucked this up. It's like, oh, you fucked it up, didn't work, and you keep going. You're not losing anybody else money, theoretically, unless you're doing something crazy with somebody else's money. Then yeah, but it's a hard mindset to get into. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if there's like a way to inoculate yourself a little bit more against like the constant failures, because I feel like that's a mindset that anybody in this industry has to build. That I think is incredibly difficult to get through, because it's hard to predict. Like, I don't know who's going to become successful, but when you see somebody who's successful, usually you look at it and you go, yeah, I get it. Like, I get why they're successful. Do you feel like there's any level of like streamlining in any of this stuff?
It's hard. It's really hard, especially because I think a lot of it is, oh fuck, I wish I could remember who emailed me. Some psychology researcher guy. I think had to do with, there are traits, actually I think about this with my own son. There are traits that are only good when they're in conjunction with other traits, and just cranking up one of these is not necessarily good. It has to be cranked up in line with other traits. So one of the things I worry about Nathan is, for better or for worse, Nathan is very similar to me. And for my life, like I can get away with a lot because I have a lot of other traits that make it work too. But like there's a lot of things, like if I was the same type of person I was, but I was way less social, like I would just be the most autistic, like unbearable piece of shit ever. Or if I was the same type of person I would, but I was a lot less ethical, it would just be an insanely different world in terms of like how I manage employees and how I do everything. So if I was the same person I was, but I was like less intelligent, I would have killed myself. It would just be horrible. Or if I was the same type of person, but I was like a criminal. Like they're like these variables that like appear and they have to like run in conjunction with other things. So sometimes it's easy to look at a person and say, oh, I know why this person is successful. It's because of this thing. And it's like, you might think that, but if they were missing like these 3 or 4 other things that make it work, then like you have no idea if that's the actual reason why they're successful, which is why even I'm like really hesitant with people like, oh, like, why do you think you succeed? I was like, I think it's because of these things, but there could be a bunch of other things going on that I really don't know. Right. Yeah, it's really hard to say. Like I'll say it like a lot that like, I'm very independent from my family, and I don't rely on them for much. But I don't know what it's like to have parents that hate you, right? Even if I don't look at them for a lot of support, or I don't feel like I get necessarily like the most types of like fulfilling support from them. Yeah. It might be that if I had parents that like outwardly didn't like me or hated me, that might be a totally different thing in my life that would impact me in a totally different way. So I try not to speak outside of like my very narrow experience, and then I try to give credit for a lot of things like, that I have had. Yeah.
Yeah. So. I feel like the self-help that's typically most beneficial is self-help that's going to be like the closest to you. Like if you're reading a self-help book and the person who's writing seems very, very personally similar to you, probably a lot of the things that they did for themselves will also help you. But if you're reading about somebody and they're nothing like you, the common struggles, their like personality ilks, their common flaws, if they're a really high conscientious person and you're really, really low in it, the things that they did to like be successful, you're probably missing like one of the key sauces that made them successful, and you shouldn't be taking their advice from them in the first place.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But that person might even, the challenging thing is even for people that give advice, they might be missing the things that make them successful too. So who knows? Like I talk a lot about how much I don't like even some of the academics that I read. I feel I'm not sure what's going on. And I give a lot of credit to like, I went to a really good high school, and it might be that the education I got in my high school was like incredibly valuable. Like like it might be really, really, really important that I went to a really good high school because it equipped me with a lot of tools that even when it comes to things just like writing that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So it's really just hard to know for anything. Or it could just be that like when you were 3 years old, your parents shouted at you because you constantly threw your bib on the floor and that's why you like clean up after yourself. Like who the fuck? Like there might be like like toddler era things that are like shaping you a lot personality wise. You don't realize it. Like who the fuck knows? Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you want to go? Have you decided like business wise and stuff? Like, are you still wanting to pursue politics? Are you still like excited about pursuing more like political influence? Is that something that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I think we'll see. Like I said, this month, we're going up to New York a lot to talk to, I think it's going to be DNC candidates, and then it's going to be some state senators. I'm trying to, the most annoying thing in the world is I'm going to try to make friends with people because I think that actually might be one of the largest protective factors against having them turn against you politically.
Probably.
Yeah, so like I get along a lot with, or it seems like I get along decently well with like the Adam Friedland, Nick Mullen, like those guys. So like when I go up to New York, I'll try to like dinner with them and like hang out and like be friendly.
That's cool.
And then the idea is hopefully that if something pops up where somebody's like, this guy's a Nazi, rather than me hoping that they have like the good political instincts to be wise and prudent when it comes to evaluating those statements. I'm like, oh no, well, I know this guy personally. Like, I don't think he's like that bad. Maybe we'll see
How
how
do
that
you,
goes.
because the last friendship arc you did was not so good.
Yeah, but I was just looking, that wasn't like professionally related. That was just like, I need more people to fill out my life, I guess. Now I've
Okay.
abandoned that concept. I have Vyvanse. I'm above the need for personal relationships. So I solely have professional ones. And now I'm just, working through that.
Okay, so you're looking solely for building further professional friendships.
Yeah. And I'm trying to implement things. So like giving credit to people when they say things that I agree with. So like when when Ethan is like saying things like providing support publicly so that my fan base is like supportive of him. That was a big thing through his thing with Hassan is to like, it's like to be able to be supportive of somebody on the internet when I see that they're like getting completely and totally destroyed by another community. It feels good to have other communities that are supportive of you.
Yeah.
Or when I see like Kyle Kalinske or Mark Lamont Hill or that Francesca person, I don't know her last name, doing things, if I agree with them, then like shooting them a DM and saying like, hey, this was a good interview, stuff like that. I'm trying to do this stuff more.
It's very interesting listening to you talk about this. It's like very much like systematizing community and connection, which I think is without like basically, this is probably going to sound condescending and I genuinely don't mean it. It's a very interesting way to think about systematizing this stuff because I think for people who are naturally good at it, it just comes really easily, right? It's like self-evident that like if, like for Christmas, I sent a number of people that came on our show Merry Christmas wishes and stuff like that from you and I, because I knew that A, you probably wouldn't think to, and B, they'd appreciate it, even though like I personally don't care that much about it. And so it's very interesting to think about like systematizing relationships in the way that you're talking about.
I mean, I have to systematize it because like the world that I exist in is so atypical in terms of the pressures that people face that I have to be incredibly considerate of all the competing forces at any point in time. So Loner Box this year was a decent example to where I think I even sent him a DM after or before we did the Israel trip. I think I sent him a DM where I was like, do you ever feel pressured to agree with me on things? Or like, is this a thing that we need to have a conversation about? Because like, I feel weird because when I start to make inroads with somebody, they're going to be attacked by everybody else that's not like part of my community. So that person is going to be isolated from a great other portion of the internet. And then that person is going to be beholden to my community and relying on them for support. So say me and Lonerbox, we do our trip, we do content, everything's like chill. And then like, let's say that as a result of that, like a lot of people call Lonerbox like a pro-genocide supporter, pro-Israel simp, Destiny changed all of his opinions, blah, blah, blah. Well, let's say that a Rittenhouse, kills 2 more people and I see it. I'm like, I think he deserved to kill his people. And Lonerbox is looking at that and he's like, I don't think that he should have killed those people. Well, now he has an incredibly difficult decision to make because he's never getting acceptance by those other communities again because he threw his lot in with me. And now if he disagrees with me, my community is reactionary as fuck. So they're going to shit on him hardcore for at least a day or two. And so like that, it just, because of how other people treat me, like Hassan or any of these far-right people, and they try to like assassinate everybody around me to like get at me, it necessarily fosters like a really unhealthy dynamic. So I have to think about how I engage with people. So now the way that I've tried to counteract that is I'll just try to engage with people that have very strong inroads in those communities, and I'll only provide support when it is ideas that my community and their communities would agree with. And then I'm going to try to see how that works. But it could be that in a year, like there are ways that this could be really bad. Like it might be that I build a lot of support with some of these content creators, and then a situation comes up that's just like a deal breaker for me, where it's like, I can't be supportive of this. And now I've built a whole bunch of fans who are like, wow, I can't believe Destiny lied about that, or he portrayed himself this way. And I was just like, that's like the negative of like this type of, so there's pros and cons to everything. But I don't know. We'll see how it works in a year.
Right. It's essentially like, how do you navigate building the friendships with these people and then having like a major fundamental disagreement? Do you think in part that comes down to some degree, being mindful and selective about the people that you build inroads with? For example, Matt Beat, I feel like is such a good example of somebody that by and large, I think we could disagree with Matt on a lot of stuff, but I think fundamentally he would always be willing to be like kind and good to us so long as we were kind and good to, by and large,
This
most
has
people.
nothing to do with the people. This has everything to do with the communities.
Okay.
I could be friends with probably almost anybody. I think I've shown that. I can talk to more people on the internet. I could be friends with basically anybody I want to be, as long as they're not like a loser. The problem comes with the communities. So like you saw Milo's community reaction, right? We had nothing but pleasant encounters. Like I don't think Milo said anything mean or bad about me.
No.
But like I don't know if he would continue to do content in that direction if his community, like let's say he like started to see like 10,000 subs drop off because he's doing community with like a pro-genocide person. There's just like a lot of weird external pressure that exists there that doesn't exist in like an ordinary interpersonal world. Yeah. So it's not the individuals themselves. That's always been the easy part, is how do you navigate that with all of the...
It's the monetized element of the relationship.
Not the monetized element, the tribal elements of other people. Because if you're Hassan's community and you see me, right? Well, Hassan is painted, like think about the caricature that exists of me in other people's minds, like Vosh and Hassan. I'm a pedophile, I'm a pro-genocide person, like I'm literally the worst person in the world. What kind of a person would be friends with or would give any credence to a person like that? They must also be supportive of those horrible, crazy, insane ideas. So it's necessarily like an isolating element. And I think almost intentionally so. You try to cut people off from like communities that way. So yeah.
Okay, so Lex, he, I feel like he's still in a state where he would always be willing to build a bridge with you. He's just like very hurt and sad about your pushback against him. Because I think, from my understanding, I don't want to put words in your mouth, there's some certain non-negotiable potential Russian warmth going on there that you have a major issue with, and like a gross both sidesing, I think, that you also have an issue with. Am I correct in understanding your aversion to Lex right now?
The problem is it's one of respect too, which is also something I've been a little bit bigger on this year, is like demanding at least like a minimum level of respect that I think I'm entitled to.
From other people to
Yes, the comparison of like me to Alex Jones as like we're equivalent in terms of the research or homework we put into a topic, and then pretending like that's the same, and then getting mad when my community pushes
Is that
back
what
against
he
it.
said?
Yes, that was the reason why the huge fallout happened, is because
Okay.
he posted a thread on my subreddit saying like, oh, like I think it would be good for Steven to debate somebody on some things. Like I think Alex Jones would be a good match. I'm just like, the fuck, Alex Jones? And then for him to get upset at like a lot of the pushback around that, I'm like, this is like, I'm not just here to be like a stooge for you to kind of like...
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't actually realize that he compared you to Alex Jones.
Yeah.
So that was
the-
actually the issue. It wasn't the like Russian...
No,
stuff
nothing to do with the
necessarily.
Russian thing. I think it also might have had to do with, I think he was upset because I think I quote tweeted a tweet of his and I was a little critical of one of the things that he said, but it wasn't like super mean or egregious. But then it was around the Alex Jones time. So, and then my community did negative feedback to that and he got really upset about that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I also saw you post a bunch of community rules. Just telling people, specifically, I noticed the rule about like we need to be like less reactionary, less like aggressively shitting on people who come on with like dissident opinions. What was just your thinking behind that? Is it like that loner box piece? Is that what like kind of made you?
No, Loner
that an
Box is an
example
example
of
of
it?
that. I'm just trying to. Ayla actually was a big inspiration for this one. One of the irritating things is that like one of my strengths is that I am capable of befriending a large assortment of people with a large variety of interests that are measured in way different ways than mine in different areas. So like I can tolerate a lot that maybe other people can't. So I feel very strongly about politics. But if I'm talking to a guy who is like the best computer programmer in the world, and then I find out that he likes Trump, like I'm not going to sit here and drill down on his Trump issues. We're just going to talk about the computer shit or whatever. But in my fan base, most of them watch me for politics, and the extra stuff is just extra stuff, but they demand the same level of care and attention and detail that I put into politics from every single person in my orbit. And then if they don't have that same level or attention or care, then they treat them as though they do.
Yes.
And then they will go ape shit if we have disagreements. So if I deal with a person, like I think Ayla and a lot of like the rationalist community have like, I would say kind of dumb, like libertarian-esque beliefs, but I don't think they spend a great deal of time like investigating political discourse or political ideology. So I'm not here to like debate that with them. I'm more interested in like other interesting conversations we could have around things. But my community will see it and it'll be like, this is a conservative or this is a libertarian and they want to replace the Fed and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, well, now what happens is when these people come to my community, there's an interesting dynamic where we get along really well, and then people in my audience like hardcore shit on them. And then there's just no desire for the back and forth, and then that like ends up being just a really negative experience. Yeah.
Right, because it creates like every time they engage with you, it's like a punishment because then they look online and there's just like really nasty comments.
Yeah, basically,
being made
yeah.
About them.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Which I guess when I'm connecting that to the loner, do you think that community reactionary tendency is part of what would maybe make people within like your social space feel pressured to agree with you?
No, I don't think they feel much pressure to agree with me because they're not beholden to my community. If anything, they feel more pressure to agree with their other
more like a
community
loner
they're part
box,
of.
though, right? Like
I don't know if
maybe...
I don't know if that issue has come up yet with Lonerbox in particular. He wasn't the person I was thinking of at all with that thing though. It's just there's a wide variety of people that I associate with that are not super political people, but sometimes they'll have like political opinions. But like my community will go ape shit on those people if they don't have like the right like my political opinions, and that's just like annoying.
Gotcha. Do you feel like the people that you're friends with, particularly like within the Orbiter space, do have pressure to agree with you?
It's hard now because this year I basically chopped off every single non-person that I'm not doing like direct political stuff with.
Chopped off intentionally?
Well, like as a byproduct of me not pursuing basically any interpersonal drama at all, right? I think all of that is like Justical deals with that on his stream. Like he'll catch a lot of the stuff, and that's kind of like what he does now, a lot of Destiny GG related drama, but everything has been like, when I think at least towards the end of the half of the year, I'm thinking like Pisco and Josiah, like these are the people that I'm doing a lot of stuff with. But I think we kind of naturally politically agree a lot anyway. Mm-hmm. I think Josiah and I agree on a lot of stuff. So I don't see my community ever going after him, although if he gave the wrong take, my community would be autistic and they would do it. Me and Pisco will fight on a lot of stuff, but I think Pisco, hopefully, knock on wood, that fucking this relationship doesn't get nuked. But I think Pisco can like handle a lot of disagreement. And I think me and Pisco, I think are actually, for whatever reason, are very similar. He like reminds me of my aunt, where we can just like fucking go hard, like you don't read any Colorado Supreme Court shit, and it's like oh blah blah blah, and then afterwards we're just like we can go like hang out, it's like funny, like that's it.
Yeah.
So hopefully that continues to be that way, but
yeah, I feel like there's a unique resilience in that, like because there's kind of like two levels, right? Like when I think of people that I can have healthy, like Pisco is a good example of somebody that I've had like pretty strong disagreements with, because I think the first time we ever talked was about Ayurveda stuff. And we had like a pretty like brutal conversation, and then it like ended with like both of us like talking about like our childhoods, and him being like, oh yeah, I guess you like probably think this and this and this because of this, and I was like, oh, and I understand how you're probably coming to these slightly different conclusions because of this and this. I feel like Lactoid is another individual, maybe not so much recently, but I feel like historically has been somebody that you can always disagree with, but it's still like light. Counterpoints is another really good person that I feel like you can always kind of like be pretty like mean to and
yeah,
loud
I love
with.
Not to do the public psychoanalysis or whatever. I love counterpoints. I think we can have huge disagreements. I think it does bother him though that my community will be so brutal towards him, and I think they are really brutal towards him.
So that was a piece I was going to add on, but there's an added layer for that goes on specifically with you, which is that like you might be able to like have that back and forth that's brutal, but then the community also dogging is like a whole other level of like wave of like hate that I think.
Yeah, that's the thing that a lot of people can't deal with. Yeah,
I know that that's something that I struggle with, right? Like I don't really care about disagreeing with anyone, and I'm pretty chill as far as like I think like you and I think disagree on Luigi. I probably wouldn't go into it right now because I would just need to research it more, and I'm like not super strongly in like pro Luigi camp. And I'd be fine to go do that back and forth. But it's like, even just saying this publicly, I'm like, here it comes, buckle up.
Yeah, so I think that's
which is very
for
punishing. But Pisco, it seems like, is resilient to that.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but us Hispanics are just built different,
Kind of.
Yeah, I don't know. So initially, my control for that was like no, like the 3-day rule. Like you're not going to make like 20 million threads on a person.
Yeah.
Then it's just I'm gonna try to community shift. What I need to do is sometimes I wake up and I do like a daily drive-by. Like my mods will start messaging me, it's like, hey, we noticed you banned like 70 people and you just put the reason to spam. Can you tell us what the fuck you're doing? So
oh, so you were just like going through and finding like the most hateful.
Yeah, usually it's about me though. So,
Oh,
but there are a couple things that I ban for that I don't have explicit rules for that I should just do bannings like on stream so that people understand. Because the point of banning is one is to set an expectation for behavior, and two is to give people a road back to redemption. This is what I always say that like bans are for.
Yeah.
But if I just do it off stream when I wake up and I'm fucking ass pained about some dumb shit in my subreddit, it doesn't really accomplish either of those goals because nobody knows what I'm actually banning for.
Yeah.
And then there's no road to redemption.
yeah. I feel like one thing that I've actually noticed, do you feel like there's a difference between somebody who like views content versus like chats, and how I thought of this when I was watching you and Lonerbox were talking about something, and I was watching the chat because I was like, I had been in a conversation with somebody recently and the chat had been pretty like mean towards me, and I was like, oh, I'm Shad. And I was like, wait, I don't even know if they're disproportionate. Like, I was like, I think they were like extra mean to me. And then I was like, wait, I actually have no idea if that's true, because I don't actually, when I'm listening to other people I'm friends with, like on stream or whatever, I'm not really reading chat. And when I am, I don't care about like negative things that people are saying. Like if Lonerbox is on and there's like one person spamming negative shit, I'm just like, what a fucking retard, right? Even though I know that if I was there seeing that one person, and what I've noticed, it would make me sad. And what I've noticed is that like typically when there's like a negative sentiment towards somebody, it usually starts with like just 3 people spamming the same shit over and over and over again until suddenly it feels like more and more people in the chat have been like, oh wow, I guess we don't like this person. I guess we don't like this person, because they just keep seeing the same iterations of criticisms. And I wonder if you like snapped and like chopped those 3 people, like just timed them out for 10 minutes, if that would prevent like 70%
Maybe, but the issue is that
animosity.
like the hard thing is that people don't realize it when it's like the seeds are being planted, and they
Like
only
the
see it when the
viewers
tree
and
is
the-
grown, and then it feels like when you're taking out the roots that, or when you're unplanting the seeds, people don't think that you're being fair. So let me give you a more concrete example of what you're saying, right? So this is how this would play out. Okay, let's say that I'm talking to, let's say that I bring in an epidemiologist and she wants to talk about COVID policy.
I'll be the hater in chat.
Sure. She wants to talk about COVID policy. She's a reasonably attractive blonde lady or whatever, and we're talking COVID policy. We go back and
She's
forth.
a whore.
She's hot, yeah. So we're going back and forth a little bit, and like 2 people or 3 people in chat are like, oh, she's only on stream because she's hot. Like, this is cringe. She's stupid, blah, 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 blah. That opinion, the seed can be planted. Most people say that they're cringe and this is not true and whatever. But then let's say that like a month from now, I have another argument with this person and they're like really wrong on a thing, or we disagree on a thing or whatever. The seeds that were planted for that idea will now come to fruition, and people are like, oh shit, we all did think that she was like, she was only there because she was hot, and now this stupid whore is like fucking blah, 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 because those people were like allowed to plant those seeds and it festered. And then now whenever there's an issue, oh, well, actually, this was true the whole time, and we knew this all, and it's like, this is cringe as fuck.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happens. Yeah, basically anytime people are upset about a particular thing, any prior
Negative loading.
prior negative stuff, regardless of how true or untrue it was, now that will come to roost, and it will be the predominant criticism, which is very fucking annoying. Yeah.
Do you see that as well in like the broader community response to you? Like if something negative about you drops, that you'll see like the same, like the wave of all the negative seeds kind of like coming into like big trees of like, if you have a position on Israel and Palestine that people don't like, will you see in the comments a number of lists of all of your other crimes in their mind?
Yeah, that always happens. Whenever somebody doesn't like a thing, now it's like, this is why I knew this because he said this and that and that and that and that and that. And it's like, okay, it's whatever.
Do you think that that's unique to the politics industry? Because I feel like one thing that's been interesting is talking to like Milo or other YouTube content creators about like the level of hate that like I get as like a nobody. They're always like, that's like unhinged. Like I actually had to call the police recently. They said that I had already had 3 calls about my home address, which is crazy, right? And they're like, don't worry, they were not very believable, blah, 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 blah. But it's very, it feels like, I don't know if it's a politics specific thing, but when I talk to content creators who do like science creation only, that is not their experience. They'll get like a couple of weird crazies, but that's about it.
It's a combination of like the type of political space that I inhabited was one of the most aggressive political spaces on the internet.
Debate bro, do you mean?
Yes,
Okay.
which is why nobody else on the left inhabited that space. And it's why even the people that on the right that inhabited that space largely disappeared because they couldn't handle it either. It was incredibly aggressive. So they either became alcoholics, they engaged in self-harm, or they left the space entirely because they couldn't deal with it. I've carried some of that with me, but like in the past year, like I firewalled off like a lot of my personal life now from stream stuff. One, as a result of the type of content I do, like the red pill stuff obviously invited a lot more personal analysis. But two, because I realize now that I have like a lot of like really creepy stalker type people, and it's easier to just never like publicly associate with anybody who I'm like private friends with now. So now basically all of my private friendships that I formed over the past like 6 months, like nobody has any idea who these people are. And even me just saying that means that they're going to be people who are now like scouring any fucking data to find. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay.
But the issue is that like if you're in my orbit, you're always inviting the full attack of every hater that I have. So even if you're a relatively small creator, if you're in my orbit, you're driving you're driving all of the hate of anybody that is like hating me, basically.
Right.
Like imagine if I were to go to some place as an American citizen and they hate the United States. Now all the hatred they have for the USA is going to be on me as an individual American, basically. Yeah.
Do you think that is would that be similar in say like a Hassan space? Like if you're Frogan, for example, are you going to collect all of the most deranged Hassan haters on you as well? Do you think that that's
Yes, you would, but the thing is you're already part of a big community, so you have protection there. That's why everybody on the internet is part of like these big political groups, is because if you get attacked, you can like bring the horn of Goron. What the fuck is it in Lord of the Rings?
I don't know.
The Gondor horn. The horn of Gondor.
You were asking the wrong.
I don't know. You can signal it, and everybody shows up, and it's like all the lefties will come to fight, or all of the conservatives will come to fight, or all of the people of the political group. But in my corner, it's just like DGGers. So.
Do you think that's because Hassan is in part so good at like networking? Like I feel like one thing. You don't think he's good at networking?
No, he's just part of that political movement. Hassan will never ever give a take that is in contrast to the broader progressive movement ever. You can't think of a single one.
Do you think he was better though? Like when I think about like the kick out with you and like the like Pokey group or whatever, that was fueled by Hassan, or am I wrong about that?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Is that because he was able to become better friends with them than you, even though you had been there longer?
No, it was because he grew a larger fan base. Because initially, when I was larger than him, he was friends with me, and that was his connection to that group. But then once he did like 6 months or something of like 90 Day Fiance, and then he started to grow a whole bunch, and then I axed off all my commie fans because I was done debating only right wingers. Once he got bigger than me, he leveraged that to say like, well, I'm not going to do any of these events. If you bring Destiny, you can do what you want. But obviously, he's got the bigger fan base, so people would kind of like gravitate in that direction.
So it was a clout piece.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Like, It's not like I like those people hate me, or I'm not friends with any of those people. Like, I'm still on good terms with basically all of those people.
It's just more worth it to have him in their social circle.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that that's all spaces will be like that, or do you like is that a streamer unique thing?
I mean, it's unique that Hassan leveraged his particular position in that way. Do you have to act that way? I don't know. It seems like everybody does now. If you have a political enemy, you basically just say they're the worst things ever, and you just do that. I don't think you have to do that. I mean, I don't do that to people, but I don't know. Maybe when you're part of larger communities, maybe there's a pressure to do that or something. I don't know. I think it's cringe, but I mean, it pays off. It's good for you.
Yeah.
Like imagine if I was still in spaces that Hassan was in, and we had like debates or arguments, and he was wrong on something, that would only hurt him. It probably wouldn't help him much, even if the content would be funny. So
in many ways, Hassan didn't create like a community around him. He like fell into a community around him and then toes the community line to stay within the community. Even though he's such a large creator, he still has to toe the community line to some degree, or can he shape it now?
You can shape a little bit. You're negatively loading that. I mean, it's not necessarily like he fell into it. Like when you're deciding to grow on the internet, you can either be independent or you can be part of some other community. Mm-hmm. If you're part of a community, then you're beholden to the tropes of that community, but you get to rise and fall with that community. If you do it on your own, you can do it on your own, but sometimes you'll be in opposition to everybody. It's just a much harder road, but there's more payoff at the end because you can be a lot more flexible and independent with the things that you do. Hmm. So like if a take came out, like if Hassan really did see the Luigi thing and he's like, ooh, I don't actually know if this is that good, he could never ever give that take. You will never know, honestly, if Hassan is given a take on anything, because his takes will always align 100% with progressive dogma. He'll never give a take to the contrast of those people.
Then why was he so willing to burn his relationship with Ethan Klein when I think that Ethan Klein is bigger than him technically, isn't he?
Because Hassan was giving the tanky takes on everything relating to.
But wouldn't that benefit him to not? Like, doesn't he have more to gain by not towing the tanky line than? Like,
he might risk losing.
More progressive?
He might risk losing the hold on the progressive community if he falls in line with some of the things that Ethan was saying. So for his take, like, settler babies need to be executable. Israel is always wrong. Communism and socialism is based. Capitalism is cringe and gay. And he has to toe that line. If he wants to be a little bit more aligned with Ethan, he can, but he might lose a huge chunk of like the progressive, like Zoomer socialist community that makes up a huge portion of his fan base. And that's a really scary thing to like, because then Ethan would be his destiny again, and he would be beholden to Ethan now for everything instead of just like progressives writ large.
Okay. Do you think that you have, if you were to say that there was any area of thinking, this might not be a question that you want to answer publicly, obviously, but if there's any area of thinking that you think is like biased in a probably like a negative way towards Hassan, what do you think would be your most like common thinking error with him?
The most biased I would be against him would probably be assuming malintent when maybe he legitimately does believe some things. So maybe he legitimately has seen enough to be convinced of the Palestinian plight, or maybe he legitimately does believe that I have. So, for instance, I say that he calls me a pedo a lot, and I think that's weird because he knew about all of these things before we did stream content together, because that was why he reached out to me, because I was the debate bro. But maybe after he didn't like me, maybe more of these things came to his attention, like how when I was friends with Mr. Girl, I didn't think that he was an actual rapist, but then after we became unfriended, now all of a sudden I think he's a rapist because people started linking me stuff that was like, look, Mr. Girl said that he actually had rape. I was like, holy shit, I hadn't seen that video before. So like, I mean, like this is like the most Steelman version ever. Like I try really hard, more than anybody else on the internet, to keep my opinion balanced about people. So like I watch a lot of stuff from people. So like there have been times where I ban people in chat who like link a clip of Hassan, and then I look at the larger clip and I'm like, I don't think he's actually saying this. There have been takes that I've literally been the only person on the internet to defend Hassan for. When he said the shit skin comment about Indians, I didn't think, or about people, I didn't think it was an Indian racial slur. I think he was just making fun of acne and he just doesn't know that that's a 4chan racial slur. Yeah. Or when Hassan said that streaming was a uniquely soul destroying job, I agreed with what he was trying to say there, even though everybody heard him saying, oh, well, actually, he's just saying streaming is harder than being a fast food worker. And like when Hassan likes to point out that like, oh, like DGG fabricates logs of me. But the only reason that was even known is because when I saw those logs posted, they looked really unhinged. And in like 2 minutes, I was like, can I see logs from Hassan's chat? I don't know if I believe these. Like I figured that out on stream in like 2 minutes. And now he uses that as evidence against my community. But the only reason he knows about that is because I was good faith enough to investigate where the logs came from. So meanwhile, he like bullies his friends like Ludwig to blame my whole community because of one anonymous DM Ludwig gets on Twitter. So yeah. I try pretty hard. Like there could be blind spots. I'm not perfect, but I think I try really hard to look for these, and I'm open to a lot of external critique on trying to find them. But generally, when people try to externally critique my introspection on these things, usually they're just like, come on, man. And then that's it, but they don't actually have like evidence of anything. So it's like, okay, well, I don't know what you want me to say.
Yeah. If you feel like you're steel manning and like trying to give benefit of the doubt and be in good faith, why do you think you have like such a caustic online internet presence?
I mean, I code really debatey masculinity or whatever, like very much like a
edge-pilled?
Fuck your face. Yeah. Hard thing. Like we're going to do facts and logic and like biting bullets on crazy positions, and maybe child porn isn't bad if the people don't rape kids and it's AI porn, and maybe like the crazy, like a lot of positions that some people just like stay away from because they're like, oh, well, this isn't worth diving into.
Like the optics isn't worth the edge.
Well, I wouldn't say that. You just asked me why it's so caustic. I think it's probably partially that. It's also partially because I don't map cleanly onto any online community. So I don't have as many like communities to come and defend me when something happens. Like having a community that's willing to be in your corner is worth a lot because it can help to write the narrative on you on the internet.
But there's no community that you can find that you would... like you're not willing to toe a community line, and so any community you might fall into, you'll eventually get kicked out of, do you think?
Basically, yeah. I'm kind of like... somewhat with the commentary community right now, but who knows if we'll majorly disagree on a thing right now. 1, 2, 3. There's a third thing.
I haven't heard your AI child porn takes yet.
Based.
That'll be it.
I'm sure Hassan has said them. I don't even think I've given takes on that. What's the third thing? Fuck, I forgot. Debate. What did I say? It's like I kind of have a debate pro ethic.
Yeah, why are you caustic? Debate bro ethic.
And the third thing was because
community.
I did have like such a variety of content prior to last year. Or last year and prior to that, or the year before last year, sorry, because we're in 2025. It drew in a lot of different types of people. So anybody that necessarily has like Lav and Mr. Girl on stream is going to invite like a certain type of fan base. It's going to be like crazy, insane. And those things were like very, very, very entertaining, but also like very like draws a certain type of fan base. So yeah.
How do you see then the merging? Because obviously you've been a lot more political this year. You're kind of towing that line consistently, particularly with the Vyvanse. How do you see like because there's kind of this gap between your show and Bridges. I feel like of all the things that are kind of integrated, Bridges is probably one of the least still integrated into your like main work. Do you feel like that's something that you want to bridge into like more, or like how do you see Bridges falling in line, especially with your greater community and the direction that you're going in the future? I
mean, it'll probably be integrated more because my alignment has been more and more political. Like I didn't really play any games at all last year. I haven't done like any like interpersonal stuff at all. It'll probably just continue to tend more and more in that direction, a direction of bridges, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So like just naturally it'll occur.
Yeah, I think it already has a lot over the past year.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Any topics that you think we should do?
Not that I can think of.
I really want to do a true crime episode. I feel like getting in like a forensic psychologist, or because the best part about forensic psychologists, which a lot of people don't know, is they can talk about almost all of their clients because their clients' information is public knowledge. It's all public domain,
Sure.
which is the best. That's why forensic psychology courses are the best, because they'll be like, yeah, I interviewed, like one of my profs. Do you know about the Greyhound guy with schizophrenia who cut off the head of the guy at the Greyhound?
Nope.
You don't know about that? It's like a crazy Canadian famous story of true crime. My prof was the leading kind of assessor, and she gave him treatment for like 10 years after he was found non-criminally responsible for the beheading on the Greyhound.
Okay. We can try to find true crime people. So we can try to find true crime people. So
Yeah, the problem is that there's a lot of women that do
true,
it,
big problem.
and we hate women here a lot.
We'll figure it out.
We'll try.
You can bring like 2 women, and that's as good as like 1 man. So
I've got to double the quota of women to balance it out. All right.
what about you? Any final feelings on anything?
Such a broad question. Do I have any final feelings on anything?
Anything you wanted to go over, or
Let me look. Strengths of bridges, weaknesses of bridges. What do we need to? What's your goal for the next year for bridges?
probably more integration into stream stuff, and probably more integration into topical stuff. I think we've learned a lot in terms of interviewing people to try to make the interviews a little bit more compelling or interesting, and then to integrate that more into other content, I think is good.
Yeah, I think my goal for the next year is getting a more streamlined research process as we bring a guest on to have. I think this is from August, but he said it would be good if we have like the title and the thumbnail kind of in mind before the guest even arrives.
Sure.
Not that it needs to be that strict, but have a much more streamlined process of like researching and
Yeah,
even,
actually, I read that message because he was saying that you can literally create the thumbnail because it's your interview. You can guide the conversation. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that will make it a better interview, but I think right now we'll often do a lot of research and then we just kind of follow where the conversation goes.
Yeah. Or it's too
and
broad and not, yeah.
And we kind of abandon it. How do you feel about pushing back? Like a lot of people wish you'd push back more on Eric Bremen.
Which one was he?
Prospera.
I feel like I push back about as much as I'm comfortable in that one without it turning into like a huge like shit show screaming match.
So we're having James Fish back on soon.
I feel more comfortable pushing back on him. We'll see how that goes.
I've also cleared, he's approved for us talking about his current lawsuit as well.
Oh, I don't know enough about that. Fuck. If we're going to talk about that lawsuit, I have to,
I'll send it to
read
you.
a lot about that. So,
how do you think Bridges should handle? Because obviously, I was actually going to put on the video how it feels like we started a show. Where is this? Is this Sleepy? Hello?
it's probably on some other monitor. Oh, it's on the one behind you. There you go.
Okay. Where is it? It's the boat. I want to put the boat up. I feel like we started with the goal of like building bridges with oppositional opinions, and I feel like you were in a.
The issue I found out is that like people won't come on to have like truly oppositional conversations. You always have to be willing to play ball in a certain like field, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess the question is there a way to have oppositional conversations? Like,
Not on this show. I don't think so. No, I don't think it's possible.
no matter
It
what.
has to be like a fuck your face debate show, like trigonometry. Like it has to be like a show like that. I think.
I feel like trigonometry very rarely has like super caustic, and even then, there's got to be a way where you can maintain some level of positive rapport with somebody. Not all people, but enough of them, and still have like decent
The
disagreements
issue is
without
that the
being
disagreements
like debate bro.
aren't like on things that are reasonable anymore. The disagreements are like, I hate you because you're destroying my fucking country. Like before, maybe with a conservative, I could have a disagreement like, is minimum wage good for workers or not?
Yeah.
But now it's like, should we have like racial homogeny in our country for social cohesion? It's like the conversations have changed so much.
Yeah.
Or like, what do you think a good trade policy looks like with another country? I think it looks like 1000% tariffs and it's all American made. Like, okay, well, this is fucking retarded. Like there is any conversation we have is necessarily going to be insanely divisive because you're so far away from any position that I would consider reasonable that people will say like, if you just provide reasonable pushback, but it's literally going to be like, I can't think of a nice way to have a conversation with you where I think you're delusional and you are actually 80 years old. Like there's no way I can gently push on that. Like, Kylo, you sure you're not 80? Didn't you just turn 80? Like that's never going to be, there's no nice way to say that. And any conversation I have with somebody on the conservative side now, we're so far apart in terms of worlds of analysis, let alone positions themselves, that it's very, very hard. Nobody is doing this now. There's not a single person on the internet that's having these types of conversations. Everybody is holed into their own little garden now and making the rounds on show. That's why Cenk is making the rounds on the conservative shows now, is because he's willing to literally suck up and play ball with everybody and be the gentlest little ball fondler ever without pushing back hard on anybody that he talks to. Same thing with Anna as well. Having an hour conversation with Glenn Beck without a single criticism of Donald Trump, is insane. So, but yeah. So I don't know now. Maybe once the conservatives lose, there might be an opportunity in 2026 when they're losing popularity and they feel like they're desperate and they need to go on shows. And then maybe that's when you grab them, because it's okay, well, let's have a debate. But right now, I think they feel very comfortable in their hug spaces, and they're just going to continue that because there's no reason not to.
What percentage confident are you of that broad position?
90%.
90%.
If you could give me a single example of a single person doing a single contentious interview on a large show that they didn't know was going to be contentious beforehand, I would significantly alter my opinion, but I can't think of a single person that's doing that right now.
What is your level of certainty that what Cenk and Anna are doing is not going to pull people further to the left or moderate opinions?
Further to the left or moderate opinions.
Yeah, because I think I could be wrong.
Oh, because the issue is, so it's the same issue that I had, and I was way more combative than they were, and I still had that issue.
Yeah.
They're not bringing them over. They're going completely over to them.
They're
right?
meeting them where they're at, which is the criticism you had of yourself a year ago, which is you had these softball. They were at you were willing to concede from 6 to 5, and they were not conceding at all at 4, but their actual opinions are a 2. I've heard you talk about this a fair bit. I guess the question is, what if you got the data and it showed that you softballing with Ben Shapiro actually did move a lot of his viewers?
Oh, that's something I'm going to work on. I need to do a survey, but I haven't done it yet. But I'll try to do this. Either I won't have time tomorrow, so it'll be when I come back on the 7th. I need to do this, but I figure out a survey for my community because I am curious where most of them came from, what style of debates. Yeah. Because I don't know the answer to that, and the data might move me maybe in how I feel about that.
Yeah, because if the data came out that a lot of people, part of the issue with your data now is that anybody that you potentially pulled who is more conservative, more willing to listen to you, from Ben Shapiro and all these softball conversations after the firefighter's death, might have already left. So you potentially have lost the data that would even suggest that.
Yeah, possibly. But I think it says something when those people are willing to tolerate so much from the other side, and any there's not a realistic world where I can play nice with those people forever, and they can still continue to shit on my side forever. Yeah, but I don't know. I'll figure this out more this year. Yeah.
Okay. So not too much contentious stuff, or prepared contentious stuff, confirming, with James. I was just it'll be contentious. It will be disagreeable.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay with you? And he's said yes to all of that.
Yeah, but I already have a little bit of history with him, so yeah, we'll see.
Okay. I want you to see if you can guess who said this.
Okay.
I've become friends with school shooters.
Oh, I already know. Was it Sam Cedar? Or was it Cenk? Bernie? No. I know who it was. I'm sorry. It was Walls.
Yep, it was Walls.
Yeah. The context of that quote is not as bad as that sounds.
I know.
But, yeah.
Ukraine is the greatest threat to this nation and to the
10-4.
world. Damn, knew it instantly.
Yeah, that was a crazy clip, considering that he was taking Russian money at the time he said it, but
Yep.
nobody cares.
16-year-old chicks are hotter than 26-year-old chicks.
Somebody on Twitter? Laura Loomer? No clue.
Pearl Davis.
Oh, okay.
Which continent is Egypt on?
Emma Vigeland.
Was that out of context, though?
No, she was fucking delusional.
But she
It had
didn't
to
know
do
where
with-
Egypt was?
No. The context of that quote was it was supposed to be a historically accurate Cleopatra docuseries or something.
She was being what continent is it on because it's on Africa.
Yeah, so people were
Wait,
they were
really?
upset because there was an African American that was cast as Cleopatra, and she was probably of origin that would have suggested fairer skin.
Macedonian, most likely.
Yeah, and then Emma was like, "What continent do you think Egypt is on?" Implying that it was African, meaning everybody is super
Everyone,
black.
which
it
is
was one of the
crazy.
dumbest things I've ever heard in my entire life. But
It's what is that? There's a term for when, when people will ask presidents or different politicians the cost of bread and what they think it costs for bread or something like that, and it's often one of the worst
$20
things.
or something. They'll say
Yeah,
something dumb,
it's something terrible, and they'll never know, and you'll be able to immediately go "Oh, you're rich," and completely disconnected from the average person's experience.
Sure.
I feel like there's got to be more questions like this that Like there's got to be more like little things like this that are like an immediate like cue. Like this person has no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, but generally people just don't care on that side. Like there's a million, like I don't know if Trump could honestly tell you what the 3 branches of government are. I don't think he could. But if they heard him not know, they wouldn't care. So it's,
Yeah.
as long as he's signaling the other shit, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, one more. Okay, I think you'll know this one. Actually, I'm going to not do this one.
Uh-oh.
Fine, Taylor, you win. I will give you a child and guard your cats with my life.
Wait. That wasn't Ben Shapiro, right? And it wasn't it wasn't Tim Pool, was it?
Nope.
Fuck.
Which Taylor? Do you know which Taylor they're talking about?
Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Oh god, I remember this. 'Cause it was such a
It's
bizarre.
so weird.
Oh, was it Elon?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Last one.
Okay.
Yes, they can control the weather.
Was that Laura Loomer? It wasn't Trump. Oh wait. Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
okay.
impressed. You got most of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I had more prepped, but. Okay. Did goals disagreed with? Anything else for the new year?
No, it should be a lot of fun.
All right. Well, that's everything.
Well, be careful.
Oh, wait. We have to announce Patreon.
Yeah, go for it.
I told people. Okay. Heads up. We have the 3 Patreon tiers. Did you look at them at all when I posted them?
Yeah.
Okay. How many tiers do we have?
3.
Yeah,
You just said that.
I did. What are they? Do you know the benefits broadly? The first tier has like kind of specific. The second tier has specific. Do you know what the benefits are for each of these tiers? What's the new thing we're developing with the Patreon for
I think the new idea that you
beverages?
had, because I was going to talk to you about this, but it had to do with some kind of like backstage access or Discord calls with either us or the Cash or somebody related to Bridges. Right?
That's the third tier.
Yep. The other one was fuck. Don't remember. I remember reading that guy.
Talking to your mic.
What?
Talking to your mic.
I don't need to talk to my. I can do what the fuck I want. I remember Brian's feedback to the things that you were suggesting because he put this in the chat after I put the.
Yeah, which is why I merged into 3 tiers instead of I think I had 4 or 5
Yeah, I
before.
remember. Yeah. What else?
Okay, the first tier is the same. Gives them early access to podcast episodes,
Mhm.
and they can send questions for upcoming guests.
Yeah.
Okay, the second tier gives them access to the Discord. So I had a brain blast.
Oh,
There's
boy.
A whole bunch of professors who will never fly down ever to Miami. There's a bunch of people that will just never travel. And rather than losing out of them as a guest at all and just like wasting all the time taken to research them and email them and whatnot, especially if we get a response at all, we'd rather get content from it. I'm going to try to get them onto the Discord to do like AMAs where we do 40-minute interviews with them and then an open AMA section with all of the viewers who can throw their hand up and ask questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, cute. And then those will be recorded and posted up as well on the Patreon. Anyone sub to the Patreon can access it, or you can pay for the episode for like $5. I think all episode purchases are $5.
Which is at patreon.com/
Do you know?
Bridges Podcast?
Bridges Studio.
Bridges Studio. Fuck, I was going to say that.
And then the last tier, that's the bi-weekly. What did you want to talk to me about? I was hoping you would talk to me about that before I rolled it out, but
Oh, I just don't know what that entails, but we'll figure it out.
yeah. There's bi-weekly meetings with the staff that we're going to have that anyone who pays for the highest tier can join.
Wow. Cool.
Okay. So if you guys want to support the stream, join us on Patreon.
All right. Well, I love you guys. It's been fun. I will be back tomorrow. Stay safe. Be careful. And don't die.